Story 1.
My husband sat me down and told me I needed to quit my job to babysit his grandchild. A grandchild I never agreed to raise in a house I don't even own, while his 25-year-old daughter refuses daycare, refuses a nanny, refuses child support, and refuses to adjust her own schedule. But somehow I'm the selfish one for saying no. So I packed everything I own into my car and drove away from a marriage I'm now realizing was never actually a partnership. I'm a 38-year-old woman, proudly child-free, or at least I was until my life got hijacked. My husband is Sam, 47, father of the year to everyone except me. And then there's Leah, his 25-year-old daughter, pregnant, freshly dumped, and absolutely convinced I owe her my entire future. Let me rewind to how this started, because it didn't begin with a bomb. It began with a whisper. Sam and I met 3 years ago at a friend's retirement party. He was charming, attentive, chivalrous in a way that felt almost anachronistic, opening doors, pulling out chairs, insisting on walking curbside on the sidewalk. I told him on our second date that I was child-free, not on the fence, not waiting for the right person to change my mind. Done. Decided. Permanent. He nodded, like I'd told him my favorite color. I already raised mine, he said. I'm not looking for a do-over. I married him 11 months later. Leah was 22 then, living with her boyfriend across town. She was polite to me in the way people are polite to hotel staff, pleasant enough, zero emotional investment. I didn't push it. I wasn't trying to be her mother. She had one, a woman named Claire who died when Leah was 16 and whose ghost occupied every family photo on every wall in Sam's house. I respected that grief. I didn't rearrange the photos. I didn't redecorate. I moved into Sam's home because it made financial sense. His mortgage was nearly paid off, my apartment lease was ending, and I kept my own savings, my own retirement accounts, my own career as a project manager at a logistics firm. My name never went on the deed. Sam said we'd get around to it. We never got around to it. I should have heard the ticking then. I didn't. 8 months ago, Leah showed up at our door on a Tuesday night, mascara streaked to her jawline, a duffel bag in one hand, and a positive pregnancy test in the other. Her boyfriend, whose name I will not dignify by remembering, had responded to the news of impending fatherhood by moving to another state. Literally. Packed while she was at work and left a note on the kitchen counter like a coward leaving a restaurant review. Sam pulled her inside, held her, and looked at me over her shoulder with an expression I'd never seen before. Not a request, a declaration. She's staying. Of course, I said, because I'm not a monster. She needed her father. She needed stability. I understood that. The first 2 months were fine. Leah was quiet, kept to herself, worked her job at a marketing agency, and attended her prenatal appointments. I drove her to 2 of them when Sam couldn't. I bought prenatal vitamins without being asked. I was trying. I want that on the record, I was trying. Then the conversation started. It was Sam, first casual over dinner. Leah's been thinking about what happens after the baby comes. Childcare is so expensive these days. I agreed. Childcare is expensive. I suggested she look into the subsidized daycare program her employer partnered with. Sam's fork paused midair. She's not comfortable with strangers watching her baby. I suggested a nanny. Someone vetted someone with references. She doesn't want a stranger in the house. I suggested Leah reduce her hours work part-time, maybe remote. She just got promoted. She can't step back now. Every door I opened, he closed. And each time he closed one, the room got smaller. Then came the real ask. Not from Sam, from Leah, sitting across from me at the kitchen table, with her hands wrapped around a mug of decaf belly round at 7 months' eyes, that same devastating shade of Claire's from the photos on the wall. Would you be willing to watch the baby during the day, just while I'm at work? My throat tightened. Leah, I work full-time. I know. But you could go remote, or maybe take a break. Dad said you've talked about slowing down. I had never said that. Not once. I looked at Sam, who was leaning against the counter with his arms crossed, and his eyes slid away from mine like oil off glass. I haven't talked about slowing down, I said carefully. It would just be temporary, Sam said. How temporary? Silence. I asked about child support. Leah's jaw hardened. I'm not dragging him through court. He'll come back. He just needs time. She was still in love with him. The man who left via post-it note. She was designing her entire childcare plan around the fantasy of his return, and I was supposed to sacrifice my career to hold the scaffolding in place while she waited. I laid it out plainly. If I quit my job, I lose my income, my 401k contributions, my professional momentum. I asked Sam directly, would he match my retirement contributions? Would he add me to the deed? Would he put anything in writing that protected me financially? He stared at me like I'd asked him to notarize a love letter. You're my wife, he said. Why are you talking like a lawyer? Because I'm living in your house, Sam. Not ours. Yours. That landed. I watched it land. And I watched him choose not to pick it up. The next week, he refinanced the house to build out the basement into a nursery for Leah. He didn't tell me until the contractor showed up. That was Wednesday. By Friday, Leah was standing in my doorway with tears rolling down her face, and she said the thing I will never unhear. I just wish my mom was alive. I stood there in that doorway and let Leah's words wash over me like ice water. Asterisk. I just wish my mom was alive. Asterisk. She wasn't wrong. She probably did wish that. Claire would have dropped everything. Claire would have built her life around that grandbaby without a second thought, and she would have done it with joy, because that's what mothers do. When the math works out, when the house is theirs, when the family is theirs, when the sacrifice lands somewhere it can grow roots. But I am not Claire. I have never been Claire. And the fact that Leah said it to my face in my doorway with tears calibrated to a frequency only guilt responds to, that wasn't grief. That was a weapon. I didn't respond. I closed the door softly, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall where Claire's wedding portrait still hung. Sam had never asked me if I wanted it there. I had never asked him to take it down. We had both been so careful, so accommodating, so polite, and politeness I was learning is just silence wearing a nice dress. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Sam and listened to him breathe and ran the numbers in my head like the project manager I am. If I quit, no income, no 401k match, no employer health insurance, my name on nothing. No deed, no legal protection, no written agreement. I'd be a 38-year-old woman with a gap on her resume, living in a house she doesn't own, raising a child she didn't choose for a stepdaughter who sees her as furniture with a pulse. And when the baby grows up, when Leah meets someone new or her ex crawls back with apologies and a ring, I'd be the woman who gave up everything and got a thank you card. Maybe. I got up at 5 a.m. Saturday morning. Sam was already in the kitchen, coffee made, sitting at the table with his reading glasses on and his laptop open, looking at nursery furniture. The basement renovation wasn't even finished, and he was already picking out cribs. We need to talk, I said. He closed the laptop, took off his glasses, folded his hands. The posture of a man preparing to manage a situation, not participate in one. I'm not quitting my job, Sam. Nobody's asking you to quit. Leah asked me to quit. You told her I talked about slowing down. I never said that. His jaw shifted. I said you'd mention times it. I didn't. You said once that you were tired of the commute. Being tired of a commute is not the same as volunteering for full-time infant care. You know that. You times no times that. He exhaled through his nose, long and controlled. She's my daughter. She's scared. She's alone. I'm asking you as my wife to help my family. I am your family. Then act like it. The words hung between us like a blade. I felt something shift in my chest, not break, not yet, but times detach, asterisk. Like a cable pulling free from an anchor. If I do this, I said slowly, I need my name on the house. I need a postnuptial agreement. I need you to contribute to my retirement for every year I'm not working. In writing, notarized. Jesus Christ. You sound like a what? A lawyer. Good. Because you just refinanced this house without telling me, Sam. You made a 30-year financial decision about a property I live in but don't own, and you didn't even mention it until a stranger showed up with a sledgehammer. He stood up. I did that for my daughter. And what have you done for me? Silence. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere in the basement, the contractor's plastic sheeting rustled like something breathing. I married you, he said. I almost laughed. I think I did laugh, actually. A short, airless sound that tasted like rust. You married me and put me in a house with your dead wife's photos on every wall, no equity, no legal standing, and now you want me to quit my career to babysit your grandchild while your 25-year-old daughter refuses daycare, refuses a nanny, refuses child support, refuses to adjust her schedule, and refuses to accept that her ex left her. Every single solution exists, Sam. She just won't take any of them because each one means admitting he's gone. And you're enabling it because you can't stand to see her cry. Get out. It wasn't Sam. It was Leah standing at the top of the basement stairs in a bathrobe, one hand on her belly, face blotched and furious. You don't get to talk about my life like that. You're not my mother. You're not even. She stopped herself, but we all heard the ghost of the sentence. Asterisk. You're not even family. Asterisk. I looked at Sam. He looked at the floor. That was my answer. That was every answer I was ever going to get. I packed in 40 minutes. Everything I owned fit in my car, and 2 suitcases, which tells you something about how little space I'd been allowed to occupy in 3 years of marriage. I called my friend from the driveway. She picked up on the second ring, heard 3 sentences, and said, "Come now. Guest room's ready." Sam followed me to the car. "You're being dramatic. We can figure this out. You refinanced a house I don't own to build a nursery for a grandchild you expect me to raise for free. There's nothing to figure out. She's my time's daughter, asterisk, and I was supposed to be your wife. I pulled out of the driveway at 11:47 a.m. I know the exact time because I looked at the dashboard clock and thought, times. This is the minute my marriage ended times, and I wanted to remember it. By 2 p.m., both of them were blowing up my phone. Sam's text oscillated between guilt and fury. Times you're abandoning us. This is what family does. You knew I had a daughter when you married me. Asterisk. Leah's were shorter, sharper times. Selfish. So selfish. Asterisk. The projection was almost artistic. A man who wouldn't protect his wife's retirement, calling her selfish. A woman who won't pursue child support, won't accept daycare, won't hire a nanny, won't reduce her hours, won't acknowledge her ex is gone, calling times me times selfish. For having one boundary, the one I stated on our second date. Monday morning, I called a divorce attorney. She listened to the whole story, paused and said, "You don't own anything jointly." I said no. She said, "That actually simplifies things." I told her to go ham. And here's the part I keep turning over the beauty. The terrible clarifying beauty is that without me in that house, absorbing the pressure, Sam and Leah will eventually turn on each other. He can't be the full-time grandparent and keep his job. She can't maintain her career and her fantasy simultaneously. The scaffolding I was supposed to be. It was never going to hold. It was just going to collapse later instead of sooner, and I would have been underneath it. I'm staying at my friend's place. My job is intact. My savings are intact. My name is on nothing of his, which means he gets nothing of mine. I keep thinking about what Sam said on our second date. Asterisk, I already raised mine. I'm not looking for a do-over. Asterisk, he was right. He wasn't looking for a do-over. He was looking for a backup plan. I just didn't know I was it.
Story 2.
My wife looked me dead in the eye and told me that going through her phone was a worse betrayal than the 6 months of explicit messages I found between her and her former student. Let that satisfying delusion sink in for a second. So here's what happened. I caught my wife having an affair with a guy she'd been grooming since he sat in her classroom. I sent every filthy message to his rich wife, and within 72 hours, her billionaire father was dismantling this kid's entire life, while my wife was still out there telling people, "I'd be crawling back any day now." She miscalculated badly. I'm 37 male. My wife is Kate, 35, a teacher who apparently never stopped mentoring her favorite student. The affair partner is Rumi, 28, married to Priya, whose father, Victor, is the kind of wealthy man who doesn't yell, he litigates. My buddy Derek is the one who lit the fuse when he called me stammering about what he'd just seen at a downtown restaurant. And me, I'm the husband who never wanted to play dirty but ended up outplaying every single one of them. Let me back up and give you the full picture, because none of this makes sense without understanding what Kate and I were before Derek's phone call blew it apart. We'd been married 4 years, together 6. Kate taught English at a well-regarded private high school, and she was genuinely good at it, the kind of teacher students remembered a decade later. I worked in commercial real estate, boring but stable, and between the two of us, we'd built something comfortable. A 3-bedroom house with a yard that was too big for 2 people, but perfect for the kids we kept saying we'd have next year. Date nights on Thursdays. A shared Netflix queue. The whole quiet architecture of a life that looks unremarkable from the outside, but feels like home when you're inside it. I loved her. That's not complicated. That's just the truth I have to say out loud before the rest of this story makes me sound like I never did. Now. Derek? He called me on a Tuesday evening. I was grilling chicken thighs on the back patio, and when I picked up, there was this long pause, the kind of silence that has weight to it. Derek is not a man who hesitates. He once told our college roommate to his face that his girlfriend was stealing from him. But that night, he sounded like someone trying to defuse a bomb with his voice. "Hey man, so I was at Luca's downtown for Sarah's birthday thing." Okay, Kate was there. My hand stopped turning the tongs. Not because that was alarming, Kate went out with friends all the time, but because of what his voice was doing. The way it kept dipping, like each word cost him something. She wasn't alone, brother. He described it in fragments. Kate in a corner booth, a younger guy, his hand on her thigh, not casually, possessively. Her leaning into him, laughing with her whole body the way she used to laugh with me in our first year. Derek said they kissed. Not a peck, not ambiguous, the kind of kiss that makes strangers look away. I wanted to come over to your place right then, Derek said, but I didn't know if I was making it bigger than, you're not making it bigger. I knew. Somewhere beneath the denial already assembling itself in my brain, I knew. Because when Kate came home that night, she told me she'd been at a coworker's wine tasting. She described the wines. She described the cheese board. She described a funny story about someone's husband. The level of detail was immaculate, the kind of specificity that only liars provide because truth tellers don't need to convince you. She never mentioned a restaurant. She never mentioned a man. That silence was louder than anything, Derek told me. I waited 3 days. I smiled at breakfast. I kissed her goodbye for work. I sat through a Thursday date night at our usual Italian place and watched her face for cracks while she talked about a student's college essay. Nothing. She was flawless. And that's what terrified me, how natural deception looked on her. Friday night, Kate fell asleep on the couch during a movie, her phone on the coffee table face down. I stared at it for 11 minutes. I know because the movie's runtime was ticking in the corner of the screen. 11 minutes of arguing with myself about privacy, about trust, about whether I was becoming the paranoid husband who ruins a good thing over a friend's misunderstanding. Then I picked it up. Her passcode was our anniversary. That detail still burns. I found the contact listed as Rumi16. Not Rumi, not a normal name entry. Rumi16, like a username, like a code designed to look meaningless if you scrolled past it. I didn't scroll past it. 6 months of messages. The first few were almost sweet inside jokes, references to books, the kind of intellectual flirtation Kate would have called mentorship if cornered. But they escalated fast. By month 2, the messages were explicit in a way that made my stomach physically contract. Descriptions of what they'd done. Plans for what they'd do next. Photos I will never unsee. And then I found the detail that turned heartbreak into something colder. Rumi had been her student. Not a college peer, not a colleague, a 17-year-old boy in her classroom. The 16 inches his contact name wasn't random. It was the year 2016, when he was in her class. The messages referenced their history, joked about how far they'd come since the back row. Kate's previous relationship, the one before me, the one she said ended because her ex was emotionally unavailable, had ended because of Rumi. She'd been circling this man for a decade. I exported everything. Every message, every photo, every timestamp. I emailed the files to myself, deleted the sent record, and put her phone back on the coffee table. Then I sat in our dark kitchen for 2 hours, feeling something harden behind my ribs, like wet concrete setting. Saturday morning, I confronted her. I expected tears. Begging. The standard playbook. Instead, Kate's face cycled through surprise, then irritation, then something I can only describe as righteous fury directed entirely at me. You went through my phone. You've been sleeping with your former student for 6 months. You violated my privacy, and you want to talk about Kate. 6 months. She stood up from the kitchen table, grabbed her keys, and said the sentence that sealed her fate, "You'll be calling me by Monday, begging me to come home. I guarantee it." The door slammed. Her car started. And I sat there, jaw tight, already composing an email to Priya. I wanted to meet her and reveal everything, but I didn't make the move because it would have looked creepy. Some strange man showing up at a woman's door claiming her husband was a cheat. So I asked around, found Priya's email through Rumi's barely private social media, and sent it to her. Everything. The full export. She responded within an hour times. How did you discover the truth? Asterisk. I told her everything in detail. I told her to read the messages carefully, and she would get all the clarity she needed. After a couple of hours, she responded asking if I had confronted Kate. I said yes. She said that she would involve her father to deal with Rumi and went offline. That was Wednesday. By Saturday, Priya was still gone. No responses. No read receipts. Nothing. I'm trying to reach out to her through all their social media accounts, mutual contacts, anything with a digital pulse. Because Rumi is using her for her father's money. I saw that clearly in the messages, the way he talked about the lifestyle and Victor's connections, and I'm terrified of what a cornered man does when his meal ticket starts. Asking questions. Meanwhile, Kate hasn't signed a single document. She's told her mother Gloria that I'm having a breakdown. She's told colleagues at the school that times I, times cheated on, times her asterisk. And 3 days ago, she sent me a text that read, times I want the house. My lawyer says I'll get it. Asterisk. She still thinks she's winning. What she doesn't know is that Victor Sandoval has already made his first phone call. Priya resurfaced on a Monday. Not with a message, with a phone call. Her voice was flat and controlled the way people sound when they've cried so much their body has simply stopped producing the chemicals for it. I'm safe, she said. My father's been handling things. I'm sorry I disappeared. I needed to be somewhere. Rumi couldn't reach me. The relief hit me so hard my knees softened. I'd been imagining headlines. I'd been imagining police reports. What's happening with him? My father doesn't do things emotionally, Priya said. He does them permanently. She explained it in pieces, the way you describe a car accident out of order, with strange details made vivid by shock. Victor Sandoval had spent the silent week not confronting Rumi, not yelling, not even acknowledging anything was wrong. Instead, he'd had his forensic accountant pull every financial record from the consulting firm where Rumi worked, the firm Victor's investment group had a controlling interest in. The firm Rumi had been hired into, I now understood, not because of talent, but because of marriage. What the accountant found wasn't planted. It didn't need to be. Rumi had been skimming. Small amounts routed through vendor invoices that didn't correspond to real vendors, padded expense reports for client dinners that never happened, the kind of petty graft that a man with a rich father-in-law commits because he believes the money is functionally his anyway. Victor had compiled it into a criminal referral. Embezzlement. Fraud. Wire fraud because some of the invoices cross state lines. Federal wire fraud. My father told Rumi's attorney that he has two options, Priya said. Full restitution, resignation, and an uncontested divorce, giving me everything. Or prosecution. Jesus. Rumi called it blackmail. My father's lawyer called it a courtesy notification of intended legal action. There's a difference, apparently, when you can afford the right vocabulary. I sat with that for a moment. Victor Sandoval hadn't fought with emotion. He'd fought with accountants and attorneys exactly as Priya had predicted. Rumi's charm, his easy smile, his talent for making women feel like the only person in the room, none of it mattered against a spreadsheet. Then Priya said something that made the hair on my arm stand up. Rumi called me yesterday. He doesn't know I told my father about Kate. He thinks this is about the money. He actually asked me. Her voice cracked for the first time. He asked me to talk to my father, to smooth things over. He said he loved me. The dramatic irony was so thick I could taste it. Rumi scrambling to save his marriage to the woman whose father was destroying him times of the affair he didn't know she'd discovered. He thought Kate was irrelevant. He thought this was a financial audit gone wrong. He also asked if I knew you, Priya added quietly. What? He asked if some man named he used your full name had contacted me. He said Kate warned him you might try something crazy. He wanted to know if you'd reached out. I almost laughed. Almost. What did you tell him? Nothing. I hung up. Kate's campaign, meanwhile, had been escalating. She'd moved in with Gloria, who initially treated me like I'd had a psychotic episode. Kate had told her mother I'd become controlling and paranoid, that I'd fabricated evidence that I was trying to isolate her. Gloria called me once, her voice trembling with protective fury, and said, "She is my daughter and I know her." I said, "Gloria, I'm going to send you something. You don't have to read it, but if you love her, you should." I sent Gloria a curated selection, nothing explicit, nothing designed to humiliate, just enough to show the timeline, the pet names, the references to hotel rooms on nights Kate had told me she was grading papers. Gloria never called me again. But 2 days later, Kate texted me times, "You turned my own mother against me. You're sick." Asterisk. At the school, Kate had been more strategic. She'd told select colleagues that I had cheated, that I was vindictive, that the divorce was my fault. She was building a narrative fortress brick by brick, and I was watching it rise from across the street, knowing exactly how to bring it down. My lawyer said, "Don't." My lawyer said we had the house, we had the prenups, infidelity clause, we had everything we needed for a clean divorce. Kate refused to sign. Her counter-demand the house 60% of shared assets and spousal support. Her lawyer sent a letter claiming I had engaged in emotional abuse and surveillance. She wanted to go to trial. She wanted a stage. So I gave her one. I sent the explicit messages redacted of photos but not of content to the head of Kate's department. Not to students. Not to parents. To the one administrator who would understand exactly what "since the back row" meant. Who would understand that Rumi16 wasn't a username, it was a timestamp. The school launched an internal review within 48 hours. Kate was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Her colleagues, the same ones she'd recruited into her narrative, went quiet with the specific silence of people recalculating which side of history they're standing on. Kate called me that night. Not texted. Called. "You'll never work in this town again," she said, her voice vibrating. "Sign the papers, Kate. I will destroy. Sign the papers. Or the unredacted versions go to the Parents Association, the school board, and every platform where your students might see exactly who mentored them." Silence. The kind that has weight to it. She signed on Thursday. The divorce finalized 6 weeks later. I kept the house. She kept nothing she demanded. Rumi, last I heard from Priya, had accepted Victor's terms: full restitution, resignation, uncontested divorce. The alternative was a federal courtroom and a public record that would follow him into every job interview for the rest of his life. Priya messaged me once more after it was done. Asterisk, "Thank you for telling me the truth. I hope you find peace." Asterisk, I told her I hoped the same for her. Then I archived the conversation and deleted her number. Not out of coldness, out of necessity. She was a reminder of the worst chapter, and I couldn't keep rereading it. Gloria never spoke to me again. I don't blame her. Loving your child doesn't require liking what they've done, but it does require choosing them, and she chose. I sold the grill, the one I'd been standing at when Derek called. It was a good grill, but every time I looked at it, I heard that weighted pause before he said her name. I booked a trip to Montana. Solo. No Vegas, no beach resort, no performative post-divorce reinvention. Just mountains, cold air, and the kind of silence that doesn't have weight to it, the kind that's just silence. The man who never wanted to play dirty walked away having outplayed everyone. And the woman who guaranteed I'd come begging by Monday learned something that should have been obvious from the start. No one is untouchable, especially not the people who are certain they are.
Story 3.
My aunt spent years destroying people's reputations over the smallest things: a boyfriend, a handheld, a rumor she invented, and the whole family just let her, because she positioned herself as the moral backbone of our household. Turns out that backbone was rotted through. She'd been sleeping with another man for 3 years, while preaching purity to teenagers. So here's what happened. My aunt stole private photos off my phone and blasted them to our entire family at 5 in the morning. She humiliated me, she humiliated my 14-year-old cousin, she made it her life's mission to police everyone's secrets. Then my boyfriend caught her making out with a stranger at his job, and I made sure the whole family saw those photos too at the worst possible moment for her. I'm 17. My aunt is Mira, mid-40s, self-appointed family judge. My mom is Sunita, the kind of person who keeps the peace even when it costs her daughter everything. My dad is Rajesh, quiet until you push him. My boyfriend Arjun, 18, shy, works security at a museum. My cousin Leo, 14, another one of Mira's victims. And then there's Priya, Mira's own daughter, 22, Oxford graduate, the golden child, whose graduation party became the stage for everything to fall apart. It started at my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary party. The whole extended family was there, 40-something people, crammed into my grandparents' house, gold decorations everywhere, the smell of biryani thick in every room. Mira had organized the whole thing naturally. She loved events. Not because she cared about celebrating anyone, but because gatherings gave her an audience. I'd been dating Arjun for about 4 months by then. We were careful. He was shy to the point where holding my hand in public made his ears turn red, and I knew times what my family was like, so we kept things quiet. But I was 17 and stupid enough to keep photos on my phone. Nothing explicit. Us at a cafe. His arm around my waist at a park. One where he kissed my forehead and my eyes were closed and I looked genuinely happy. That was the most damning one, apparently. During the party, I left my phone charging in the guest bedroom. Unlocked. I know. I times know, asterisk. Mira must have seen me texting earlier because she went looking. She told everyone later she'd gone to the bedroom for her reading glasses. But she spent 11 minutes in that room. I checked the photo transfer timestamps afterwards, scrolling through my gallery, selecting 7 photos and airdropping them to her own phone. Then she walked back out, refilled her chai, and laughed at someone's joke like she hadn't just loaded a gun. She waited until 5:07 a.m. the next morning. Maximum impact. Everyone's phone buzzing on their nightstand, the notification sound cutting through sleep. She dumped all 7 photos into our family WhatsApp group. 63 members with a single message times. Sunita, do you know what your daughter has been doing? This is what happens when parents don't pay attention. Asterisks. My mother's scream woke me up. I didn't even get to read the messages first. She was already in my doorway, phone in her fist arm, cocked back. The phone hit my cheekbone before I understood what was happening. Not the throw itself, the cracked times of the screen against bone, the hot sting that bloomed across the left side of my face. Who is this boy, she kept saying. Who times this boy? I couldn't speak. I was sitting up in bed with my hand on my cheek, watching my mother pace and cry and pace. And all I could think was times Mira did this. Mira was in that room. Asterisk. My dad came in 20 minutes later. He'd read the group chat. He looked at my face, already swelling, and then at my mom, and something shifted behind his eyes. He didn't yell. He sat on the edge of my bed and said, Sunita, enough. Just that. Quiet. Final. The next 3 weeks were the worst of my life. My mother didn't speak to me. Not silence as punishment, silence as something broken. She'd set my plate at dinner and walk away. Arjun texted me constantly panicking, apologizing for things that weren't his fault. He stopped coming anywhere near our neighborhood. At school, people somehow knew. I don't know who in the family group chat had a kid at my school, but someone talked. A girl in my chemistry class asked me if the photos were the spicy kind, and I locked myself in a bathroom stall for the entire lunch period. I tried calling Mira once. I wanted to hear her explain it. She answered on the second ring, cheerful, and said, "Beta, I did it because I care about you. Your parents needed to know." I hung up. Tried again the next day, thinking maybe I'd say something devastating, something that would make her feel what I felt. But what do you say to someone who genuinely believes they're saving you? I eventually gave up. My mom also distanced herself from Mira. She ignored her calls even when Mira visited our house uninvited. My dad gave her the cold shoulder, and my mom tried to keep the meeting short by saying she was busy. What about me? I didn't even greet her. Mira got the hint that we no longer wanted her in our lives. She even tried to confront my mom about the incident and said she didn't mean to humiliate us. My mom said that we had moved on from that incident, and so should she. She never brought up that topic again. She also stopped meddling in our business because my mom ignored her. If humiliating me was not enough, she went after my cousin Leo. Leo was 14, and she saw him walking with a girl holding hands. She clicked his pictures and showed them to his parents. Not privately. At a family lunch. She pulled Leo's dad aside loud enough for the table to hear and said, "Your son is getting very friendly with girls." The girl looked 13. Asterisk. 13. Asterisk. She said it like Leo was a predator. He was a kid holding a classmate's hand. Leo's parents grounded him for a month. The girl's family found out. Her older brother confronted Leo outside school. Leo stopped talking at family gatherings entirely, just sat in corners, headphones on, eyes down. I watched this happen and something calcified inside me. Not anger exactly. Something colder. The understanding that Mira would never stop. That she fed on this. That the only thing that would ever shut her down was a taste of her own medicine. I didn't go looking for it. I want to be clear about that. I joined a dance class. I tried to move on. Arjun and I slowly rebuilt things quieter than before. He'd started a part-time security job at the city museum, mostly watching cameras and checking bags. Boring work. He liked it. Then one Tuesday night, he called me. His voice was strange, tight, almost breathless. "You need to come to the museum," he said. "Right now. Bring a USB drive." What? Why? Just come. It's about your aunt. I drove to the museum on my learner's permit with a USB drive in my pocket and my heart somewhere near my throat. Arjun was waiting at the staff entrance, still in his uniform. He didn't say anything, just took my hand and led me to the security office, a cramped room with 6 monitors, a desk covered in sign-in sheets, and the stale smell of instant coffee. He pointed at the screen. Third camera. The Mughal Miniatures Gallery far corner behind a temporary partition where they stored extra display cases. Mira, my Aunt Mira, pressed against a man I had never seen in my life. His hands were in her hair. Her back was against the wall. They were kissing like teenagers who thought no one was watching. I sat down in the security chair and stared. "I noticed them about 40 minutes ago," Arjun said quietly. "They came in separately, met in that corner." I thought I was wrong at first. I zoomed in. It's her. It was her. The same gold bangles she never took off. The same burgundy shawl she wore to every outing. The same woman who had airdropped my photos at 5:07 a.m. to teach my mother a lesson about parenting. "Can you save this footage?" Arjun hesitated. "I already did." And he pulled out his own phone. 3 photos. Close-ups he'd taken of the monitor with timestamps visible. Clear enough to see her face. Clear enough to see his... I copied everything to the USB drive. My hands were steady. That surprised me. On the drive home, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt like I was holding a grenade with the pin already out. I sat on those files for 6 weeks. Not because I was being strategic. Because I was terrified. Every time I plugged in the USB drive and looked at the screenshots, my stomach turned. This wasn't a boy holding a girl's hand at a park. This was a married woman with a daughter, and I was 17, and the weight of what I could do pressed against my ribs like a stone. But then the invitation arrived. Mira was throwing a party, a grand celebration for Priya's acceptance to Oxford's graduate program. Not just family. Neighbors, family, friends, colleagues. She'd rented a venue. There would be a stage, speeches, a slideshow of Priya's achievements that Mira had curated herself. My mother showed me the invitation inside. We should go. For Priya's sake. I agreed. For different reasons. The night before the party, I printed the photos on glossy paper at a print shop 2 neighborhoods away. Paid cash. Selected the 4 clearest images, Face visible, timestamp visible, his hand on her waist, her laughing into his neck. I slid them into a white envelope, placed the envelope inside a gift box, wrapped it in gold paper with a ribbon, and wrote on the tag times to Mira Auntie with love from the family, *. I hired a courier service. Time delivery 7:30 p.m., 30 minutes into the party, right when the speeches would begin. The venue was beautiful. Mira had outdone herself. White lilies on every table, a banner that read Times Our Pride Pride, Times in gold letters. She moved through the crowd in a silk sari, accepting compliments, touching people's arms, glowing. I sat at our family's table with my parents and watched. At 7:32 p.m., a courier walked in and handed the box to the event coordinator, who brought it directly to Mira on stage. She was mid-speech, something about how discipline and strong values produce exceptional children. The coordinator whispered in her ear. She smiled, held up the box to the audience. Even surprise gifts tonight. Let's see who loves us this much. She pulled the ribbon, lifted the lid, took out the envelope. I watched her face. The smile didn't drop immediately. It froze first, calcified like something dying in real time. Her eyes moved across the first photo, then the second. Her fingers went white around the edges of the paper. The room was still waiting for her to share. Someone called out, "What is it, Mira?" She laughed. This high, fractured sound that convinced no one. Just some silly. Priya walked up to the stage. She took the photos from her mother's hands, looked at them for 3 seconds, then looked at Mira with an expression I will never forget. Not shock, not anger, but times recognition, *. I knew it, Priya said, not loud, but the microphone was on. 60 people heard her. The room went silent in that specific way that only happens when everyone understands at once. Mira grabbed for the photos. Priya stepped back. Mira's husband stood up from the front table, confusion collapsing into something worse. We left. My dad's hand was on my shoulder, guiding me out. He didn't speak until we were in the car. "Did you do this?" I said nothing. "I'm not asking again later." "Did you do this?" "I don't know what was in that box." He looked at me in the rearview mirror. He knew. He didn't push. The aftermath was slower and heavier than I expected. Priya didn't wait for the family to process. She hired a private investigator within the week. The PI confirmed what the photos suggested. Mira had been seeing the man for 3 years. * 3 years? * The entire duration of her moral crusade against me, against Leo, against anyone whose private life she could crack open for public consumption. Priya moved out of her mother's house. She told her father everything the PI found. She told him calmly, clearly, the way someone speaks when they've been rehearsing the truth in their head for longer than anyone realized. Mira showed up at our house on a Thursday evening. I was in my room, but I heard everything through the wall. She was crying, not the performative kind. Raw, ugly, gasping sobs. "I was lonely, Sunita. You don't understand. He made me feel like I existed." My mother said nothing for a long time. "Then, you should be telling this to your husband. He's giving me one chance. One. But Priya won't speak to me. My own daughter, Mira. You did this to yourself." More crying. Then so quiet I almost missed at points. That's what this is. I spent years exposing everyone else, and her voice broke. It came from me. My mother made her tea. Because that's who my mother is. My dad found me in my room afterward. He sat on the edge of my bed, same spot as the morning my mother threw her phone at my face. "If you were involved," he said slowly, "you need to understand something. Their marriage might not survive. Priya might never forgive her mother. That's not just revenge. That's people's lives." My throat tightened. "She did it to me first." "I know." He put his hand on my head. "That's why I'm not angry. But I need you to sit with this. Really, sit with it." I did. I have. Some nights I feel vindicated. Some nights I feel sick. Most nights I feel both at the same time. And I'm learning that this is what it actually means to get what you wanted. The understanding that justice and revenge share a border so thin you can't always tell which side you're standing on. Mira doesn't come to family gatherings anymore. Leo started talking again. Arjun still works at the museum. Priya texts me, sometimes short messages, no context, just checking in. We never discuss what happened. We don't need to. I'm 18 now. I know things about consequences that most people don't learn until they're much older. I wish I didn't.
Story 4.
My wife's brother moved in with us 3 months ago. Except he wasn't her brother, and he wasn't gay. And everything I thought I knew about the woman I married was a lie she'd been building since before our first date. So here's the short version. My wife convinced me to take in her supposedly disowned brother who was fresh out of rehab. Turns out he was actually her drug addict boyfriend she never broke up with, and she fabricated an entire family backstory, conservative parents, a painful estrangement, all of it just to keep this man close while married to me. I'm 32 male. My wife is Renee, 28, and genuinely one of the sharpest people I've ever met, which makes all of this worse. The man she moved into our home is Marco, 27, and her parents, Gerald and Diane, are the warm, lovely people Renee told me she'd been disowned by. They hadn't disowned anyone. They didn't even know Marco existed. Let me back up to where this started because the lie didn't begin with Marco moving in. It began on our second date. Renee told me about her family over cheap pasta at a place that doesn't exist anymore. She said her parents were deeply conservative, the kind who monitored her phone until she was 20, who refused to let her study out of state, who saw any deviation from their plan as betrayal. She said she'd clawed her way out, moved cities, cut contact, built herself from nothing. I remember sitting across from her thinking, times this woman is extraordinary. Asterisk. She told me her younger brother had come out as gay and her parents had disowned him completely, changed the locks, removed his photos. She said she'd tried to intervene and they'd cut her off too. She cried telling me this. Real tears, or what I believed were real tears. Her voice cracked in the right places. Her hands shook holding her wine glass. I fell in love with her courage before I fell in love with her. We married 14 months later. Her family didn't attend the wedding. I never questioned it. Why would I? The story was airtight. She had a stepbrother named Ryan from Gerald's first marriage, and she'd mentioned him exactly twice in passing enough to establish he existed, never enough for me to dig. I realize now she rationed every detail like someone managing inventory. Then 3 months ago, she told me her brother had finally gone to rehab. She said he'd reached out. She said he had nowhere to go. She asked if we could take him in temporarily, just until he got stable. His name was Marco. I said yes because I loved her, and because I thought I was helping someone she loved. Marco arrived with a duffel bag and the kind of exhaustion that made him look 10 years older than 27. He was polite, quiet, grateful. He called me man a lot. He slept on our pull-out couch and did the dishes without being asked. But things didn't sit right almost immediately. The first thing was the name. Renee's last name before marriage was Bellamy. Her parents were the Bellamys. Marco's last name, which I saw on a piece of mail that arrived for him in our mailbox the second week, was Reyes. I asked Renee about it casually. She said he'd legally changed it after the disownment wanted nothing to do with the family name. I nodded. Filed it away. The second thing was the whispering. They whispered constantly. In the kitchen when I was in the living room. On the balcony when I was showering. Once I came home early and they were sitting on the couch with a gap between them that looked recently manufactured, like two magnets pulled apart by a third hand. Marco stood up too fast. Renee smiled too wide. The third thing was that Marco never talked about the family. Not once. A man supposedly disowned by his parents, freshly sober, living in his sister's apartment, and he never mentioned them. Never said their names. Never expressed anger or grief, or anything at all about the people who'd supposedly destroyed his life. I posted about it online. Anonymous, vague. Just the broad strokes, wife's brother living with us, different surname, weird energy, constant private conversations. The responses split into two camps. Half said I was paranoid. The other half sent me links to threads I wish I'd never read. Wives who'd moved lovers into the family home disguised as cousins, brothers, old college friends. The playbook was almost standardized. Fabricate a sympathetic backstory. Exploit the husband's empathy. Install the other man under his roof. I read those threads for 4 hours. My hands were steady the entire time. Something in me had already known. I started building my case quietly. I asked Marco if he'd be willing to put together a resume so I could help him find work. He agreed. The resume listed his education, his work history, his full legal name, Marco Antonio Reyes. No mention of Bellamy. No name change documentation. The timeline of his employment showed continuous residence in a city 4 hours from Renee's hometown. He hadn't grown up where she grew up. He hadn't grown up in her family at all. That weekend, I told Renee I had a work trip near her hometown. I suggested she come along so we could visit her parents. I framed it casually already, knowing she'd refuse proximity to her actual parents. It was the one variable she couldn't control, so it was easier for her to say no. As expected, she said she was busy, but she kept asking me if I would be visiting her parents. I said no, I won't visit them alone. We can plan for the next time. In reality, I had no work trip. I went to her hometown only to meet her parents and uncover her truth. I don't want to get into the details of how I sourced their address. It was on her ID. So I went to their house and immediately told them not to reveal this to Renee because I was planning a surprise for her. Renee's birthday was around the corner a day after tomorrow. So I told them that I was arranging a surprise party for Renee and went there to invite them in person. They were pleased to receive me. Gerald shook my hand with both of his. Diane hugged me in the doorway. Their home was warm, cluttered with family photos, and nothing times about these people suggested the cold, controlling fundamentalists Renee had described. While speaking to them, I eventually opened up and told them that they don't seem conservative at all, not the way Renee had described. Gerald's face changed. Diane set down her tea. Conservative, Gerald said. We begged that girl to stay. I asked about their son. Gerald said, Ryan's in Seattle. We talk every Sunday. I asked carefully if they had another son, a younger one, named Marco. They looked at each other, then back at me, who Diane said slowly is Marco. I drove back to the hotel that night with every window down 80 miles an hour on an empty highway, and the only thought cycling through my head was this. Right now in my apartment, in the home I pay for, Renee and Marco are alone together. And they know exactly what they are to each other. Her birthday was in 2 days, and her parents had just accepted my invitation. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of anger. Anger would have been simpler. I lay in that hotel bed running the math on every conversation, every tear, every perfectly rationed detail she'd fed me over 3 years, and what kept me awake was the precision. This wasn't impulsive. This was architecture. I drove home the next morning, one day before her birthday. Marco was eating cereal at the kitchen counter, and Renee was blow-drying her hair in the bathroom. Everything looked normal. Everything had always looked normal. That was the craft of it. How was the trip, she asked when I kissed her cheek. Productive, I said. Actually, I want to do something special for your birthday tomorrow. Stay home. I'll handle everything. She smiled. The same smile from our second date, the one I'd once mistaken for vulnerability. You don't have to do all that. I want to, I said. I really want to. I spent that day in a kind of surgical calm. I bought a cake. I ordered flowers. I texted Gerald and Diane the address and the time 6 o'clock come straight up the door would be open. Diane sent back a string of heart emojis and wrote that she couldn't wait to see her baby girl. I stared at that message for a long time. These people loved Renee. They had never stopped. She had invented their cruelty the way a novelist invents weather to set the scene for a character who doesn't exist. The morning of her birthday, Renee woke up happy. She stretched across the bed and pulled me toward her and said, 30 looks good on me, don't you think I told her it did? Marco knocked on the bedroom door and wished her happy birthday through the wood. She laughed. I watched the ease between them, the familiarity that I'd once read as sibling comfort, and I saw it clearly now. The way her voice softened half a register when she spoke to him. The way his knock was gentle, almost intimate, 2 taps instead of 3. I told her I was handling dinner. She should relax, get dressed up, enjoy the day. She spent the afternoon doing her makeup while Marco sat on the couch scrolling his phone. At one point I walked past and he looked up at me with those tired eyes and said, "This is really cool of you, man." "Family's important," I said. He nodded. He had no idea what he was nodding to. By 5:30, Renee was in a green dress, her hair pinned up, standing in the kitchen, finishing a salad she'd insisted on making because she said she couldn't just contribute nothing. Marco had changed into a clean shirt. The apartment smelled like garlic and candle wax and the ordinary machinery of a life that had never been real. At 5:58, my phone buzzed. Gerald times. We're in the lobby. Asterisk. I told Renee I'd forgotten something in the car and went downstairs. Gerald was wearing a blazer. Diane was holding a wrapped gift with a bow that looked like she'd spent an hour on it. I shook Gerald's hand, hugged Diane, and led them to the elevator. "She's going to be so surprised," Diane whispered. "Yes," I said. "She is." I opened the apartment door and stepped aside. Diane walked in first. Then Gerald. The hallway opens directly into the kitchen and living room, one continuous space, and Renee was standing at the counter with a knife in one hand and a tomato in the other, and Marco was 3 feet away leaning against the fridge. Diane said, "Baby?" Renee's head turned. The knife stopped. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Her eyes went from her mother to her father to me, and I watched the blood leave her face in real time like someone had pulled a plug at the base of her throat. Gerald stepped forward, arms open, and then he saw Marco. He stopped. His arms lowered. "What are you doing here?" Gerald said. Not to Renee, to Marco. Marco straightened. His mouth opened. Closed. "You know each other," I said. I already knew, but I needed the room to hear it. "That's Marco Reyes," Gerald said, his voice flattening into something I hadn't heard from him before. He's the reason we almost lost our daughter. Renee set the knife down. Her hands were shaking. Dad, let me. He's been living here, I said, for 3 months. Renee told me he was your son, that you disowned him for being gay. The silence that followed had texture. Diane's gift hit the floor. Gerald turned to Renee with an expression I can only describe as a man watching something he built catch fire. Oh, I said Ryan didn't come. It would have made things easier, isn't it? Renee flinched, like I'd struck her. Gerald crossed the kitchen in 4 steps, grabbed Marco by the collar of his clean shirt, and dragged him toward the door. Marco didn't resist. He went limp the way someone goes limp when they've always known this moment was coming. Gerald shoved him into the hallway and pointed at the elevator and said something quiet I couldn't hear, and Marco walked away without looking back. Diane was crying. Renee was standing in her green birthday dress in the kitchen she'd been cooking in 2 minutes ago, and she looked at me, and for the first time in our marriage, I saw her without a story prepared. How long? She whispered. Long enough, I said. The divorce took 11 weeks. She signed everything without contest. No negotiation, no lawyers jousting over assets. She showed up to the finalization alone, thinner, wearing no makeup. She didn't look at me. Gerald removed her from the family will. I know this because Diane called me 3 weeks after it was finalized, sobbing into the phone. She said Marco had relapsed. She said Renee was still with him. She said she didn't understand how her daughter, her brilliant, sharp, capable daughter, could throw away everything for a man who couldn't stay clean for 6 consecutive months. I didn't have an answer for her. I still don't. What I keep coming back to is this. Renee built an entire mythology. Cold parents, a disowned brother, a woman who'd clawed her way to freedom, and she built it so well that I married the character, not the person. Every detail measured, every tear placed. The woman I admired for her resilience was real, in a way I hadn't understood. She was times resilient. She maintained a lie across years, across a marriage, across the daily architecture of a shared life without a single crack I could see until a piece of mail arrived with the wrong name. That's not weakness. That's a kind of terrifying talent. And she spent all of it on Marco Reyes, a man who the last I heard was sleeping on someone's floor. I think about that sometimes. How the sharpest person I've ever known made the dumbest choice I've ever seen and made it over and over and over again and called it love.
Story 5.
My husband died 6 weeks before his secret walked up to my front door. A teenager. British accent. Holding a shoebox of photos that proved my husband had been flying across the ocean for years to play daddy to a child I never knew existed. So here's what happened. My husband Marcus passed in a workplace accident. I'm still drowning in grief when his 18-year-old son shows up claiming he's family, and half the internet is telling me it's a scam, while the other half is calling me a monster for not welcoming him with open arms. Meanwhile, my 8-year-old is sobbing because she wants her brother and I can barely look at this kid without seeing every lie my marriage was built on. I'm 32. Marcus was my husband. Callum is his son, the one he hid. My daughters are Amara, she's 12, and Zuri, she's 8. My sister Denise won't stop pushing me. And my mom Gloria is convinced we're being conned. Let me tell you about Marcus first, because you need to understand what I thought I had. Marcus grew up in foster care, bounced between 7 homes before he aged out at 18. He told me this on our 3rd date, sitting in a parking lot, eating cold fries, and he said it like he was reading a grocery list. No emotion. Just facts. Then he looked at me and said, I'm going to be the father I never had. That's the only thing I know for sure about myself. I married that man. I married that promise. When Amara was born, he cried so hard the nurses asked if he was okay. When Zuri came, he was the one who noticed something was different before any doctor did. He fought for her evaluations. He sat in every meeting. He learned every acronym. Marcus was not a perfect husband. He traveled too much for work. He shut down during arguments. He had this way of going somewhere behind his eyes where I couldn't reach him. But as a father, I would have bet my life on him. I did bet my life on him. Then he died on a Tuesday. Crane malfunction. They called me at 2:47 p.m. And I remember thinking the number was odd because Marcus always said odd numbers were lucky. I was still wearing his deodorant on my wrists because the grief counselor said familiar scents help. I was still sleeping on his side of the bed. I was still answering his phone when it rang, listening to his voicemails from coworkers who didn't know yet, letting them talk to a dead man. 6 weeks into that. 6 weeks of holding my daughters together with hands I couldn't feel. That's when the doorbell rang. Callum was tall, taller than Marcus. He had Marcus's exact jawline and these light brown eyes that didn't match, but somehow still looked like him. He was wearing a wrinkled button-down like he'd slept in it on the plane. He was shaking. I'm sorry, he said. British accent soft. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how my mom passed last year, and Marcus was all I closed the door in his face. Not slammed. Closed. Quietly. Like if I did it gently enough, it wouldn't be real. He left the shoebox on the porch. I opened it at midnight. Photos. Marcus holding a baby in what looked like a London flat. Marcus at a school play sitting in the back row. Marcus pushing a boy on a swing. The boy maybe 7, grinning with missing teeth. Birthday cards in Marcus's handwriting. A boarding school newsletter with Callum Whitfield circled in the honor roll. A photo from maybe 2 years ago, Marcus and a teenage Callum standing outside a pub, Marcus's arm around his shoulder, both of them squinting into the sun. Years. He'd been going for years. Every work trip reshuffled in my mind like a deck of cards being cut. Every time he said conference in London or client meeting in Manchester, I sat on my kitchen floor with those photos spread around me, and I felt my marriage die a second death. This one, slower and uglier than the first. Callum came back 3 days later. This time Denise was with me. Let him talk, Denise said. I don't owe him anything. Nobody said you did. But those girls heard the doorbell last time, and Amara's already Googling. So I let him in. He sat on the edge of my couch like it might burn him, he explained. His mother raised him in London. She and Marcus were never together, a brief relationship. When Marcus was 21 before any of this, she got sick. Marcus started visiting more. When she died, Callum was 17, and Marcus helped him get into university. Then Marcus died, and Callum had no one. I'm not asking for money, he said. He talked about Amara and Zuri. He showed me pictures. I know this is mental. I know you probably hate me. I didn't hate him. I hated what he represented. But I couldn't separate the two yet. Gloria was the one who said it first. Baby, how do we even know this is real? People run scams like this. Man dies suddenly, someone shows up wanting a piece. It landed in my chest like a key finding a lock. A scam. Of course, that was easier. That was survivable. I posted online asking for advice, and the responses split me in half. Half said Times get a DNA test immediately, this is textbook fraud. Asterisk. The other half said Times that boy lost his father too. You're punishing a child for a grown man's choices. Asterisk. I let Denise supervise 2 visits. Controlled, 1 hour each. Zuri attached to Callum like a magnet, this child who struggles with every new person, every transition, every social cue. She climbed onto the couch next to him and started showing him her rock collection. He sat there for 40 minutes asking about every single rock. Amara stayed in her room both times. After the second visit, I told Callum not to come back. Zuri screamed. Not a tantrum, a sound I'd never heard from her. Guttural. She hit the floor and she screamed like something had been torn out of her. He's my brother. Daddy gave me a brother, and you're taking him. I stood in my hallway watching my 8-year-old shatter, and I thought, Times, I am doing the right thing. I am protecting my family. Asterisk. Denise called that night. You need to hear yourself because you sound exactly like Gloria right now. Don't. That boy flew across an ocean. We are not in a place to give anything emotionally or financially, so I recoiled from him. That doesn't make me a monster. Nobody called you a monster. But pushing him away doesn't make him a threat either. I hung up. 2 weeks of silence. Amara started weekly therapy sessions. I tried to get Zuri in too, but she hated it, so I pulled her out for now. The house felt like a held breath. Then the DNA results came back, and Marcus's last lie fell apart. The results were 99.98%. I read the number 4 times, like the decimals might rearrange themselves into something I could argue with. Marcus's son. Marcus's actual biological undeniable son. I sat with the paper on the same kitchen floor where I'd spread those photos weeks before, and I waited for the rage. It came, but not at Callum. It came for the man I'd buried. The man who sat in IEP meetings advocating for his daughter's right to accommodation while his other child ate Christmas dinner alone at boarding school. The man who cried when Amara was born because fatherhood meant Times everything, Times to him while a boy in London already knew the shape of his absence. I called Denise. It's real. Silence. Then, okay. So what now? I don't know. Yes, you do. I let Denise arrange a visit. Saturday noon, the park near the library. Neutral ground. She'd supervise. I wouldn't be there. That was the deal. Then Saturday morning, Denise called with a stomach bug so violent I could hear it through the phone. Reschedule, I said immediately. He's already on the train. He took a bus to the train station at 6 a.m. Then he can take a train back. You call that girl and tell her the brother she screamed for isn't coming because you couldn't sit on a bench for 2 hours. I couldn't. I physically could not make Zuri hear that again. So I went. Callum was already there when we pulled up. He was sitting on a bench with his hands between his knees, and when he saw my car, he stood up so fast he knocked his water bottle off the seat. He looked at me the way you'd look at a dog you weren't sure about. Cautious. ready to be still. He was scared of me. That hit somewhere I wasn't prepared for. Callum Zuri was out of the car before I'd fully stopped running across the grass with her rock bag bouncing against her hip. He crouched down and she crashed into him already, talking about a geode she'd cracked open, about a show she'd watched, about how she'd saved him the best quartz, because the white ones are common, but this one had a pink vein. Through it. C times. C asterisk. He looked at the rock like she'd handed him something holy. Amara stayed by me, arms crossed. She watched her sister and this stranger brother with an expression I recognized because I'd been wearing it for weeks, the face of someone calculating how much more loss they can afford. You don't have to go over there, I said. I know. We sat on a bench 30 feet away. I pretended to look at my phone. Amara pretended to read. We were both watching Callum teach Zuri how to skip stones in the creek, his throws exaggerated and terrible on purpose so she'd laugh. He has Dad's arm thing, Amara said quietly. What? When he throws? That hitch? Dad did that. I looked. She was right. The same slight pause at the top of the arc, like the arm was asking permission from the shoulder. Genetic. Inherited. A dead man's motion living in a stranger's body. Amara's jaw tightened. She went back to her book. But 10 minutes later, she was standing at the creek's edge, not participating, just times closer times, and Callum didn't push. He didn't even acknowledge her approach. He just kept skipping stones with Zuri and left the space open. Smart kid. We stayed 3 hours. I said maybe 40 words total, most of them. Be careful near the water. Callum said even less to me. Thank you for coming at the beginning. Thank you for today at the end. Both times he couldn't quite meet my eyes. I wasn't trying to hurt him or scare him, but I had, and knowing that sat in my chest like a stone with no pink vein through it. Many people online and off shared their own stories of being separated from biological relations and the effect it had on them. Adopted kids who found siblings at 40 and grieved the decades between. Half-brothers who grew up in the same city and never knew. I read every single message. I don't fully understand it because genes don't mean much to me. I've never felt pulled toward anyone by blood alone. But I don't have to understand it to respect it. Denise agreed to continue supervising visits. Twice a month became 3 times. Callum never asked for more. He never asked for money. He never asked me a single question about Marcus, though I could see him swallow them sometimes, these unasked things moving behind his careful eyes. The shift happened on a Wednesday in October. Zuri was having a bad day, overstimulated nonverbal rocking on the living room floor with her hands over her ears. I was on the phone with her occupational therapist trying to get an emergency appointment. Denise was in the kitchen looking helpless, and Callum, who was there for a scheduled visit, sat down on the floor 6 feet away from Zuri, said nothing, and started sorting her rock collection by color. He didn't touch her, didn't talk to her, just sorted rocks slowly, where she could see his hands. After 20 minutes, she crawled over and corrected his categories. Sedimentary, igneous, metamorphic, not color. He nodded seriously and let her rebuild the whole system. I stood in the doorway and thought about Marcus saying times I'm going to be the father I never had. Asterisk, he'd meant it. I believe he'd meant it every time. But meaning something and doing it are different currencies, and Marcus had been bankrupt in ways I was only beginning to map. That night, I wrote Callum a card. Nothing elaborate. Asterisk. Thank you for being patient with her. I hope you'll stay involved. Asterisk. By Thanksgiving the following year, he brought his girlfriend, a polite, quiet girl named Sophie, who Zuri immediately decided was her rival for Callum's attention. Amara, now 14, rolled her eyes at her sister's jealousy, and then spent the entire meal asking Sophie about university in London, with an intensity that told me exactly where my daughter's college list was heading. I watched them across my table. Marcus's 3 children together in a room he never allowed to exist. I don't know why he lived the way he did. I have a theory that a boy who grew up in 7 homes learned to keep his worlds in separate boxes because that's how he survived, and he never unlearned it, even when the stakes changed. Even when the boxes held people who deserved to know about each other, I'll never confirm this. The only person who could explain is gone, and he left no voicemails for me. Just cards in a shoebox addressed to a boy I almost turned away. I personally don't feel like I'm in any place to have a relationship with Callum, and I don't think he wants one with me. We are something unnamed, 2 people orbiting the same wound, making room. But my girls have a brother, and their brother has a family. Marcus couldn't build that bridge. He was too busy maintaining the walls. I tore them down. Not gracefully, not willingly most days, but down.
Story 6.
My sister-in-law sat across from me at dinner, looked me dead in the eyes, and told me she'd be taking my 3-month-old baby home with her during the week so she could finally be a mother. And she wasn't joking. What started as years of quiet tension over her infertility exploded into a full psychiatric crisis after she watched me breastfeed my son, and within weeks, she was involuntarily committed after telling her psychiatrist. Things so alarming. They classified her as an active danger to me and my baby. Then, in our second story, a mother-in-law who works at the DMV decided to forge her own son's signature and slap her name on a car title that wasn't hers. So, I'm 36, married to Marcus, and Denise is his older sister. Craig is Denise's husband, and Patricia is my mother-in-law. In the second story, I'm 24, my fiancé is Derek, and his mother Lorraine works at the DMV, which she apparently thinks makes her above the law. Denise and I were never close, but we were civil. For 10 years, we shared holidays, swapped birthday gifts, and kept the kind of peace that holds a family together when two people simply don't click. The tension was always there, low-grade humming beneath every interaction, but I understood where it came from, and that understanding kept me patient longer than most people would have been. Denise was diagnosed with unexplained infertility at 30. By the time she was 35, she and Craig had burned through 3 rounds of IVF, 2 failed adoptions, and what Craig once quietly told Marcus was close to $90,000. Every pregnancy announcement in the family landed on her like a physical blow. When I had my first child, my daughter, now 4, Denise didn't come to the hospital. She sent flowers. Nobody blamed her. Grief makes people do strange things, and absence is one of the kinder options. But something shifted when I got pregnant with my son. Denise started calling more. Texting. Showing up at the house unannounced with baby clothes she'd bought. Neutral colors, expensive brands, tags still on. She asked to come to my ultrasound. She asked to be in the delivery room. Each request came wrapped in this desperate sweetness that made my stomach clench because I could see what was happening even if nobody else wanted to name it. She wasn't celebrating my pregnancy. She was auditioning for a role in it. Marcus told me I was reading too much into it. Patricia said Denise was finally healing. Craig said nothing, which I now realize was its own kind of alarm. My son was born in February. Healthy, perfect mind. Denise visited the hospital the day after delivery, held him for 40 minutes, and cried the entire time. Not quiet tears, deep shaking, sobs that made the nurses look at each other. When I gently took him back to feed him, she stood up and left without saying goodbye. 3 months passed. Denise pulled back again, fewer texts declined, 2 family dinners. Then Patricia organized a Sunday dinner at our house, insisted everyone come, said the family needed togetherness. I agreed because I was exhausted in choosing battles, and this one didn't seem worth fighting. Denise arrived with a diaper bag, not a purse. A fully stocked diaper bag, diapers, wipes, a change of clothes, formula, a pacifier for a baby she didn't have. I noticed it the second she walked in, and the hair on my arms stood straight up. Marcus didn't see it. Patricia didn't see it. Craig saw it. I watched his face go white, watched him lean into Denise and whisper something, watched her shake him off with a sharp jerk of her shoulder. Dinner was fine for the first 20 minutes. Normal conversation, my daughter showing Denise her drawings, Craig complimenting the food. Then my son started fussing in his bassinet. I picked him up, settled into the corner of the couch, and started breastfeeding. I'd done this 100 times in front of family. It was nothing. Denise went still. Not quiet time still, asterisk. Like something behind her eyes locked into place. She stared at my son, latched to my breast with an intensity that made me angle my body away from her instinctively. The room kept talking. Nobody noticed. I noticed. Then she spoke. "I've been thinking," she said, and the table conversation died. "It would be really good for the baby if he spent weekdays with me and Craig. I could create a real motherly bond with him. You'd still have weekends." Silence. The kind of silence that has weight. Denise, Craig said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We talked about this." "No times you times talked," she said, not breaking eye contact with me. "I'm talking now. It's only fair. You have 2. I have none. That's not balanced, and everyone at this table knows it. My daughter was sitting 3 feet away coloring. My son was still nursing. My hands were shaking, but my voice came out flat and hard in a way I didn't recognize. That is never going to happen. You don't get to decide that alone," Denise said. "Marcus, Patricia, this is a family decision." Marcus put his fork down. "Denise, you need to stop." "Why?" "Because she said so." Denise's voice cracked. "She gets everything. She gets times, everything times, and I get nothing. And nobody in this family has ever once, get out of my house." I said it while still holding my son, still feeding him. My body hadn't moved, but something in my face must have, because Craig was already standing, already reaching for Denise's arm. "We're leaving," Craig said. "Denise. Now." She grabbed the diaper bag on her way out. That detail kept me up for 3 nights straight. Craig called Marcus at midnight. What he told us made my blood run cold. 2 nights before the dinner, Denise had tried to leave the house at 3 a.m. Craig found her in the car engine running, repeating that she needed to check on her baby. He'd also found her browser history, dozens of searches on how to induce lactation without pregnancy, how to establish custody of a relative's child, and how long a baby could survive on formula if the mother wasn't present. Craig was sobbing on the phone. He said he'd already made an appointment with a psychiatrist. The earliest opening was 10 days out. He was scared. He was sorry. He didn't know what she was becoming. Patricia moved into Craig and Denise's house the next morning. Not to visit, to watch. I changed every lock in our house, installed cameras on both doors, and called my daughter's preschool to update the pickup authorization list. Marcus handled it like Marcus handles everything, steady, methodical, quietly terrified underneath. We didn't sleep in the same rhythm for a week. One of us was always awake, always listening. Then the psychiatrist appointment finally came, and what Denise said in that room changed everything. Craig called Marcus on a Tuesday afternoon, which was unusual because Craig never called during work hours. Marcus stepped out of the kitchen. He runs a small catering operation, the kind that keeps your hands busy and your phone on silent, and came back 11 minutes later, looking like someone had hollowed him out from the sternum down. "The psychiatrist is requesting an emergency evaluation," he said. Denise told her she has a plan. A plan for what? Marcus sat down at the table across from me. Our son was sleeping in the next room. Our daughter was at preschool. The house was quiet enough to hear the cameras click through their rotation cycle on the front porch monitor. She told the psychiatrist that she'd been chosen to raise our son, that I would eventually agree because I'd see it was right. That you were, he stopped, swallowed, that you were an obstacle and that obstacles get removed. My hands went to the table, flat, pressing down. Like if I didn't anchor myself to something solid, I'd come apart at the molecular level. She said that to a doctor in a session. She said it calmly. Craig said the psychiatrist told him Denise presented it like a logical argument. Step 1, step 2, step 3. She had times, contingencies, times, Marcus said. For if Craig didn't cooperate, for if Patricia sided with us, for if I didn't give him up. Marcus nodded. He couldn't say it again. The psychiatrist, Dr. Alana Voss, a name I will never forget, made the call that afternoon. Under state law, when a mental health professional determines a patient poses an imminent danger to a specific individual, they don't ask permission, they act. Doctor, Voss contacted the county crisis team. By 6 o'clock that evening, Denise was involuntarily committed to an inpatient psychiatric facility on a 72-hour hold that was extended within 48 hours to a minimum of 14 days. Craig called us from the facility parking lot. He wasn't sobbing this time. He was past that. His voice had the flat, scraped-out quality of a man who just watched his wife escorted through locked doors while she screamed his name. "She thinks I betrayed her," he said. "She thinks this is proof that the whole family is conspiring against her." "Craig," I said, "because Marcus couldn't? You saved her life, and you might have saved my son's." He hung up without responding. The next 72 hours were mechanical. I called the preschool again, not just to update the pickup list, but to provide Denise's photo and a physical description. I called our pediatrician's office and flagged the file. Marcus installed a deadbolt on the nursery door, which is something no parent should ever have to do, and something I stared at every single night while feeding my son at 2 a.m, wondering what kind of world requires a lock between a baby and the hallway of his own home. Patricia drove back and forth between the facility and Craig's house, like a woman running a supply line in wartime. She brought Craig meals, she brought Denise books and a blanket from home. She called me once on day 4 and said I failed her. I saw the signs and I called it healing because that was easier. I didn't argue with her. She was right. Marcus and I had the conversation every couple dreads, the one where you sit across from each other after the kids are asleep and say the quiet thing out loud. When she gets out, I said, "She's not coming near this house. Ever. Ever. And holidays, birthdays, Patricia's." Marcus pressed his palms against his eyes. I don't know yet. But our kids come first. They come before Denise's feelings, before Craig's guilt, before my mother's need to hold this family together with both hands. Your sister is sick, Marcus. My sister described removing you like a task on a checklist. That's not sick in a way that earns her access to our children. That's sick in a way that means the door stays locked. He was right. I hated that he was right. We won't be moving. It's not feasible for us at the moment, but we have taken extra steps with security both at home and at the kitchen. This whole thing has taken a toll on my family, but Patricia, Craig, and the treatment team are taking care of Denise, and Marcus and I are focused on ensuring the safety of our immediate family and minimizing the effect on the kids as much we can. My daughter asked me last week why Aunt Denise doesn't come to dinner anymore. I told her Aunt Denise is getting help from some very good doctors. She accepted that the way 4-year-olds accept most things completely temporarily, with the unspoken promise of asking again later. My son is 5 months old now. He laughs when his sister makes faces at him. He grabs my hair when I carry him. He has no idea that someone mapped out a plan to take him from me with the calm precision of someone organizing a grocery list. I grieve for Denise. I do. I grieve for the woman who sent flowers when she couldn't bring herself to visit the hospital because that woman was surviving her pain without converting it into someone else's nightmare. That woman is gone now, or buried under something I am not qualified to excavate. It's an incredibly sad situation for both parties, and unfortunately, it's a reality for a lot of families out there. Infertility breaks people in ways that don't always look like breaking. Sometimes it looks like love misdirected and metastasized until the person carrying it can't tell the difference between wanting a child and wanting. Asterisk yours, asterisk. The deadbolt stays on the nursery door. The cameras stay on. Patricia stays in Craig's guest room. And I stay awake, one ear always tuned to the monitor, listening for sounds that don't belong in my house. The family survives. But the version of it that existed before that Sunday dinner, the one held together by civility and willful blindness, and the quiet agreement to never name what was growing in Denise's silence, that family is gone. We're building a different one now. Smaller, fortified, scarred in places that won't fully heal. But mine?
Story 7.
15 years. That's how long we'd been married. 15 years, 2 daughters, a mortgage, and what I thought was a pretty damn good life. Amy and I were the couple our friends looked up to. The ones who still held hands, who still laughed at each other's stupid jokes. We were solid. Unshakable. Or so I thought. It was a Friday night. Another lockdown special, which meant a virtual get-together with our college friends, beamed onto our 6.5-inch smart TV. The girls, Chloe and Maya, had made a brief appearance to wave at their aunties and uncles, before retreating upstairs to their own digital worlds. Now it was just us, the adults, shouting over each other from our respective living rooms. Wine was flowing. Amy, curled up next to me on the couch, was on her 3rd glass of rosé, her cheeks flushed, and her laughter a little too loud. I was nursing a whiskey, enjoying the easy comfort of it all. The whole setup was running off Amy's phone, which she'd connected to the Chromecast. It was easier than trying to get the laptop to play nice with the TV. John, you're quiet tonight. Sarah's face, pixelated and slightly distorted, filled the screen. Just admiring my beautiful wife, I said, slinging an arm around Amy. She leaned into me, her head resting on my shoulder. It was true. Even after all this time, she could still take my breath away. The call dragged on for another hour. By the end, Amy was dead to the world, her soft snores a gentle counterpoint to the boisterous goodbyes. All right, guys, we're out, I announced, giving a final wave. Amy's tapped out. A chorus of goodnights echoed through the speakers before the host finally ended the call. The screen went black for a second, and I reached for the remote to switch to Netflix. But before I could, the screen flickered back to life. It was still mirroring Amy's phone. Her WhatsApp was open. I didn't think anything of it. I was about to disconnect it when a new message popped up at the top of the screen. Asterisk, asterisk, lifeline. You still up, beautiful. Missing you. Asterisk, asterisk. My brow furrowed. Lifeline. I'd never seen that contact before. A new best friend I hadn't heard about. The heart emoji felt intimate. I leaned in closer, my buzz from the whiskey sharpening into a nervous edge. Amy stirred beside me, her phone still lying face up on the couch cushion between us. The screen was unlocked. Another message from Lifeline appeared. Asterisk, asterisk, Lifeline. He must be asleep by now. God, I wish I was there instead of him. Asterisk, asterisk. My blood went cold. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering against my ribs. Asterisk. He times who the hell was times? He times who was this person? To know our evening routine, I looked at the chat list. A dozen conversations with friends, family, her mom group. But there at the top pinned was Lifeline. The last message from Amy's side read, "Times, party's still going. He's getting drunk. Wish you were here to rescue me." Asterisk. My stomach turned. Rescue her from what? From our life? My hand trembled as I picked up the TV remote. My thumb hovered over the directional pad. I didn't want to know. I swear to God, I wanted to turn the TV off and pretend I never saw it. But I couldn't. I pressed the down arrow. The screen scrolled. I started reading. The conversation was a dizzying mix of mundane details and raw, explicit intimacy. They talked about their day, what they had for lunch, and then in the same breath, what they wanted to do to each other. There were pictures. A lot of pictures. Selfies she'd sent from our bathroom, our bed. Places I thought were ours. There were pictures he'd sent back. I kept scrolling. Down, down, down into the abyss of my wife's secret life. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. The dates on the messages blurred together. 2020. 2019. 2018. It just kept going. Then I saw his name. Matt. The world tilted on its axis. Matt. Her childhood friend. The guy I'd known for 15 years. The guy who came over for barbecues, who the girls called Uncle Matt. The guy Amy had always described as her gay best friend. "Oh, Matt's not interested in women," she told me years ago, laughing it off when I'd asked if there was anything between them. "He's been my rock since we were kids, that's all. He's family." A lazy bum, she'd called him. A lovable screw-up who could never hold down a real job. I'd felt sorry for him. I'd even helped him out with a loan once, which he never paid back. The chats laid it all bare. They mocked my work ethic, my taste in movies, my performance in bed. They dissected every argument Amy and I ever had with Matt, always taking her side, telling her she deserved better. They had pet names. They had a history that predated me by a decade. They had a future they were planning one that didn't include me. My entire marriage, our entire life together, replayed in my mind, but now it was a horror film. Every business trip I took, every late night she'd said she was out with her girlfriends, every time she'd been texting Matt about his problems, it was all a lie. I wasn't her husband. I was the placeholder. The stable, reliable provider. The chump. I scrolled back years. All the way to the beginning of the chat history she'd saved. 15 years. It had been going on for 15 years. Our whole marriage. He was her lifeline because I was her prison. The shock was gone, replaced by a cold, hard rage that settled deep in my bones. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a drunken fling. This was a calculated long-term deception. She hadn't just cheated on me. She had built our entire life on a foundation of lies. Our home, our children. My children. A wave of nausea hit me so hard I had to grip the edge of the couch. Were they even mine? The thought was a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. I looked at Amy, sleeping so peacefully beside me, a slight serene smile on her lips, as if she were having a pleasant dream. The sight of her made my skin crawl. She was a stranger. A monster disguised as the woman I loved. I couldn't wake her. Not like this. Not fueled by whiskey and a rage so pure it felt like it could burn the house down. I needed proof. I needed something concrete, something she couldn't deny or wriggle her way out of. With tears and excuses. My own phone was in my pocket. I pulled it out, my hand steady now with a grim sense of purpose. I aimed the camera at the TV. Click. The first photo captured a screen of her telling him she loved him. That he was her soulmate. Click. The next was a nude she'd sent him just last week, taken while I was in the shower down the hall. Click. 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 I photographed everything. The promises. The explicit details. The way they laughed about me being completely oblivious. Page after page of our life being torn to shreds. Preserved in crystal clear 4K on a 6.5-inch screen. I documented years of betrayal in under 5 minutes. When I was done, I lowered my phone and just sat there in the dark, the TV's glow casting long shadows across the room. I stared at the screen at their intertwined lives displayed for me to see. Beside me, Amy sighed in her sleep and shifted her hand, falling onto my leg. A casual, possessive touch. The touch of a wife. I flinched like I'd been burned. Her eyelids began to flutter. The first thing she saw when her eyes cracked open was the television. A flicker of confusion crossed her face, followed by a tidal wave of pure animal panic. She shot upright, snatching her phone from the cushion. With a frantic swipe, the screen mirroring her betrayal vanished, replaced by the sterile logo of the Chromecast. She turned to me, her face pale, her eyes wide and searching. "Did you?" I just stared at her, the whiskey and the rage, forming a thick sludge in my throat. I couldn't speak. I just gave a slow, deliberate nod. Her breath hitched. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She just stared back, cornered. The silence in the room was louder than any argument we'd ever had. "John," she finally whispered. "You're drunk. We'll talk in the morning." She got up and walked out of the room. I listened to her footsteps on the stairs, the click of our bedroom door shutting. Our bedroom. I slept on the couch. The next morning, she came downstairs dressed for a normal Saturday. She poured a coffee, her movements breezy as if nothing had happened. "Morning," she said, her voice bright and utterly false. "About last night. You saw some silly messages." "It was just flirting, John. Harmless fun. All my friends do it. It's healthy." Healthy. The word came out like a shard of glass. I stood up from the kitchen table, my own phone in my hand. "You call this healthy?" I turned the screen toward her. The first photo I'd taken was displayed in perfect clarity, her, naked on our bed, with the caption asterisk, "Thinking of you. He's at the grocery store." Asterisk. The color drained from her face. Her coffee cup trembled in her hand. "I read it all, Amy," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. 15 years of healthy flirting. I read about how you pitied me. How you mocked me with him. How you wished every night that he was in our bed instead of me. "John, please." The facade crumbled. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. Don't you dare cry. Just tell me why." She finally broke. A raw, ugly sob escaped her. "Because I loved him," she screamed, slamming the mug on the counter so hard it cracked. "I've always loved him. We were together since high school, don't you get it?" "Then why marry me?" "Because he was a lazy bum." The confession was venomous. "He had no ambition, no future. I loved him, but I wanted this house. I wanted the kids to have a good life. I wanted security. And you were safe. You were the smart, stable choice." The words hit me harder than a fist. I wasn't her husband. I was her 401k. The girls I choked out the question I dreaded most clawing its way up my throat. "Are they?" "They're yours," she said instantly, a flicker of something, maybe the only truth of the morning in her eyes. "Of course they're yours." I wasn't stupid. I could never risk having his kids. I made sure of it. The calculation in that statement was the final nail in the coffin. "We're done," I said. "I want a divorce." I gave her a week. 1 week to tell Chloe and Maya the truth. Her truth. "You broke this family," I told her, my voice cold and flat. "You will be the one to explain why." If you don't, I will. On day 6, she sat them down on the couch. I stood by the doorway, my arms crossed, watching the performance. Girls, she began, her voice dripping with manufactured sadness. Daddy and I need to tell you something. Daddy got a big new job. In another country. He's going to be moving away for a while. I saw the confusion on my daughters' faces. Chloe, my sharp-eyed 12-year-old, narrowed her eyes. What are you talking about? Dad loves his job here. Maya, who was only 9 but saw everything, looked from her mother's tear-streaked face to my stone-cold expression. Are you getting divorced? She asked, her small voice cutting through the bullshit. She looked right at me. Dad, did you cheat on Mom? That was it. The snap. Amy turning me into the villain was a line I wouldn't let her cross. No, Maya. I didn't, I said, stepping into the room. I knelt in front of my daughters, forcing myself to meet their frightened eyes. Your mother has been lying to us. To all of us. For a very long time. She has been seeing someone else. Her friend Matt. The name hung in the air. Uncle Matt. The girls stared at Amy, their expressions shifting from confusion to a dawning, horrified understanding. Amy just sat there, mouth agape, her manipulative story in tatters. Get out your phones, I said to my daughters, my voice shaking with rage. Call Grandma and Grandpa, both sets. Tell them to come over right now. It's a family emergency. An hour later, our living room was a pressure cooker. My parents sat on one side, stiff and anxious. Amy's parents sat on the other, already looking at me with accusatory glares, no doubt fed a preemptive sob story by their daughter. Amy started in with the tears. John is trying to take the girls from me. He's making things up. Am I? I pulled out my phone and connected it to the Chromecast. Let's watch a movie. It's a tragedy about our marriage. I put the photos on the screen. The nudes. The messages mocking me. The plans they'd made. The lazy bum confession. I narrated the worst parts out loud, my voice ringing with a terrible vindicated clarity. I left nothing out. The room was utterly silent, broken only by Amy's strangled sobs and her mother's gasps of horror. When it was over, I turned off the TV. No one looked at me. All eyes were on Amy. Her own father stared at her, his face a mask of disgust. Is this true? She couldn't speak. She just nodded, her body racked with shame. Then Chloe stood up. She walked over to her mother, her young face set like granite. I want you to leave, she said, her voice clear and strong. Just leave our house. Maya stood beside her sister, a silent, unshakable wall. That night, my brother-in-law came and helped Amy pack a bag. She was out of the house before the sun came up. I filed for divorce the next day. She didn't fight me for custody of the girls. She knew she wouldn't win. She only asked for half the value of the house she'd bought with my money. Therapy started for me and the girls a week later. We were rebuilding piece by painful piece. 2 months into the separation, Amy's own sister called me furious. She and her husband had dropped by Amy's sad little apartment unannounced and found her in bed with Matt. The affair wasn't over. It had just gone public. The fallout was biblical. Amy's family, disgusted by her complete lack of remorse, turned their backs on her. Matt's parents, who were wealthy and had been funding his artistic lifestyle for 2 decades, finally cut him off for destroying my family. The last I heard, Amy was working as a cashier at a grocery store. Matt was bagging for her. They had their love, I guess. But they had nothing else. Sometimes late at night, I wonder if it was worth it for them. Then I look at Chloe and Maya sleeping peacefully in their beds, in a home that is finally safe, finally honest, know I have everything that ever truly mattered.
Story 8.
I met Daniel where all good girls in my town met their future husbands. The 1030 a.m. service at Grace Chapel. He was new, visiting with his cousin, and he had that clean-cut, earnest look I was raised to believe was the hallmark of a God-fearing man. He had kind eyes and a firm handshake. And when he said he was looking for a church home, a little voice in my head whispered times, "This is it. This is him." Asterisk. Our first date was for coffee after service the following Sunday. He was magnetic. He talked about his mission trip to Guatemala, his volunteer work at the youth center, and his desire for a family built on a foundation of faith. The words poured out of him, a perfect script of everything I'd ever prayed for. The most important thing to me, he said, leaning forward over his lukewarm latte, is purity. Honoring God with our bodies and our relationship until we're married. I felt a wave of relief so powerful it almost knocked me over. I dated guys who'd pushed, who'd wheedled, who'd made me feel like an old-fashioned prude for holding on to my convictions. But Daniel got it. He didn't just accept my boundaries, he shared them. He was in a word safe. The courtship was a whirlwind. It was 9 months of hand-holding during movies, chaste kisses on my front porch, and long talks about the future. We planned our dream home, named our hypothetical children 2 boys, 1 girl, and read devotionals together over the phone. He was everything. Respectful, charming, and deeply spiritual. My parents adored him. My friends were jealous. I was floating. When he got down on one knee in the middle of the town square, a tiny velvet box in his hand, I didn't hesitate. Saying yes was the easiest decision I'd ever made. Our wedding was small and quaint, exactly what I wanted. We held it in the little chapel where we met, surrounded by our closest family and friends. I remember the scent of the white roses on the altar, and the way the afternoon light streamed through the stained glass windows, painting us in jewels. When Daniel slid the simple gold band onto my finger, his hands were steady. He looked into my eyes and promised before God to love and cherish me in sickness and in health for the rest of his days. I believed him. I believed every single word. The bliss was intoxicating. We drove away from the reception with tin cans clattering behind our car, my head on his shoulder, a future as bright and shiny as my new ring stretching out before us. We were starting our honeymoon with a road trip down the coast, a week of charming inns, scenic overlooks, and finally being truly together. The first few days were a dream. We were clumsy and shy, and everything I'd imagined my first time would be sweet and sacred. We drove with the windows down, singing along to the radio, stopping at every kitschy roadside attraction we saw. On day 3, we pulled over at a viewpoint overlooking the ocean. The cliffs dropped dramatically into the churning blue water below, and the wind whipped my hair across my face. Daniel grabbed his phone. "Stay right there," he commanded, a wide grin on his face. "You look beautiful." He snapped a few pictures, the sound of the digital shutter lost in the roar of the waves. I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated happiness. I was a wife. His wife. "Oh, let me see," I said, running over and wrapping my arms around his waist. He handed me the phone without a second thought. I was smiling in the picture, my eyes squinting against the sun, the ocean, a perfect backdrop. He'd captured the moment perfectly. He'd captured me times perfectly. I was about to tell him so when the screen lit up with a notification banner at the top. An unsaved number. The text was short. Asterisk. Thinking about last night. Can't wait for you to be home. Asterisk. My blood went cold. My smile froze on my face. It was probably just spam. A wrong number. It had to be. "Everything okay?" Daniel asked. He was leaning against the guardrail, looking out at the water, his back to me. "Yeah, fine." I managed to choke out my voice thin. "Just admiring your photography skills." He chuckled, oblivious. My thumb hovered over the message app icon. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. Asterisk. "Don't do it, Angela. Trust your husband. Don't be that wife." Asterisk. But I couldn't stop myself. My thumb tapped the green icon. The text was at the top of a long thread. I tapped on it. The contact was just a string of numbers, no name. My eyes scanned the last few messages, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. My breath hitched. Her times. Have the best time with your wife. Just remember who was keeping your bed warm the night before. Asterisk. Him times always. You know you're the one. Asterisk. Her times. Prove it when you get back. Asterisk. There were pictures. Explicit pictures. Things I'd never even considered doing, let alone with someone I wasn't married to. Pictures of her. Pictures of him. Pictures of them together. I started scrolling up, a desperate, sick feeling churning in my stomach. I scrolled past yesterday. Past our wedding day. Past the week before. The month before. The conversations went back and back and back. 9 months. The entire time I had known him. He was sleeping with her when he asked me to be his girlfriend. He was sleeping with her when he told me he loved me. He was sleeping with her the day he bought my engagement ring. He was sleeping with her the night before he stood at the altar and promised to forsake all others. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I felt the bile rise in my throat. Every chaste kiss, every prayer we'd said together, every promise of purity, it was all a lie. A sick, elaborate performance. I wasn't his respected, cherished bride. I was his gullible, religious cover story. I scrolled and scrolled, a spectator to my own destruction, until I saw it. A text from Daniel sent from our rehearsal dinner while I was in the bathroom. Asterisk. Wish you were here instead. Can't wait to see you tonight. Asterisk. I stopped breathing. He left the dinner early. He told me he was feeling overwhelmed and needed to get a good night's sleep before the big day. I'd kissed his forehead and told him I understood. I'd felt a rush of love for my sensitive, thoughtful fiancé. He hadn't gone home to sleep. He'd gone to her. The phone felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I looked up from the screen, my vision blurry with tears I hadn't realized were falling. The world tilted on its axis, the beautiful ocean view turning into a nauseating, spinning vortex. I heard the crunch of gravel behind me. Ready to head to the hotel, baby, Daniel's voice was cheerful light. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. I'm starving. I just stood there, paralyzed, his phone gripped tight in my hand, its screen a glowing testament to the ruins of my entire life. His arms felt like a cage. My body went rigid. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the sickening warmth of his hands on the skin of my arms. He was touching me, kissing my hair, while the proof of his monstrous betrayal was burning a hole in my hand. I twisted out of his embrace, stumbling back a step. I held up the phone. The screen was still lit up, a neon sign broadcasting my ruin. His smile vanished. Angela, what? Don't, I whispered. The word came out like broken glass. I shoved the phone at his chest and turned walking blindly toward the car. The drive to the hotel was 20 minutes of suffocating silence. He kept opening his mouth to speak, then closing it. I stared out the passenger window, watching the postcard-perfect scenery blur into a smear of green and blue. Every tree, every crashing wave felt like a personal insult. How dare the world be beautiful when mine had just ended? The hotel room was disgustingly romantic. A 4-poster bed strewn with rose petals, a bottle of cheap champagne chilling in a bucket, a honeymoon suite. I wanted to set it on fire. Daniel closed the door behind us, the click of the lock echoing in the room. Baby, you have to let me explain. Explain what I spun to face him, my voice finally finding its volume. Explain the 9 months of text, the pictures. Or should we start with the night before our wedding? Explain how you left our rehearsal dinner to go sleep with her. The color drained from his face. He looked like I'd physically struck him. Good. It's not what it looks like, he stammered the classic pathetic defense of a guilty man. It looks like you're a liar, I spat. It looks like you stood in a church in front of God and my family and made a mockery of me. Of everything I believe in. All that talk about purity, honoring God, was that all just a performance? Was I just the religious idiot you could trick into playing the part of your wife? He sank onto the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. I was going to end it, I swear. After we got married, it was going to be over. Oh, how noble of you, I laughed a harsh, ugly sound. You were going to grant me the honor of being your only woman times after times you'd already sealed the deal. After I was legally and spiritually trapped. It's not like that. I love you. No, you don't, I said, the realization hitting me with the force of a physical blow. You don't love me. You love the idea of me. The good Christian girl who would give you the perfect-looking life while you did whatever you wanted on the side. I walked over to him, my whole body trembling with a rage I didn't know I was capable of. Get your phone. He looked up, confused. What? Get your phone, I repeated through clenched teeth. You were going to end it. Fine. End it. Right now. In front of me. He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. It wasn't over. It was never going to be over. Do it, I commanded. With shaking hands, he pulled the phone from his pocket. He unlocked it and opened the message thread. I stood over his shoulder watching. His thumbs hovered over the keyboard. Tell her it's over, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Tell her you're married and you can't ever see her again. He typed deleted and typed again. Finally, he wrote times. I can't do this anymore. I'm married. Asterisk. He hit send. We both watched the screen waiting. The three little dots appeared almost immediately. My stomach churned. Her reply was instantaneous. Asterisk. What the hell are you talking about, married? You were with me 2 nights ago. Asterisk. There it was. The final confirmation. The other nail in the coffin of my 9-month fairy tale. She was just as blindsided as I was. He hadn't just lied to me, he had lied to everyone. I backed away from him, a cold, hollow feeling spreading through my chest. Divorce. The word screamed in my head. A scarlet letter in the world I came from. A public failure. A sin. Asterisk. What God has joined together, let no one separate. Asterisk. The verse was branded on my soul. Daniel saw the conflict on my face. He saw his opening. We can fix this, Angie, he said, his voice turning soft and pleading. He stood up, trying to take my hands. I snatched them away. We made a covenant. Before God. For better or for worse. This is the worst. We just have to work through it. God hates divorce. He used my own faith as a weapon, twisting the blade. And I stranded 1,000 miles from home, humiliated and utterly broken, let him. I had no friends here. No family. No money of my own. All I had were my vows. And they felt like a life sentence. That was the end of our honeymoon and the beginning of our marriage. The next 4 years were a masterclass in misery. The charming, God-fearing man I'd fallen for was gone, replaced by a sullen, cruel stranger. He never hit me, but his words left bruises no one could see. I was stupid. I was needy. I was no fun. I was lucky he'd even bothered to stay with me after I'd violated his privacy and ruined our honeymoon. He held that over my head like a guillotine. I withered, I lost weight. I stopped talking to my family much because I couldn't bear to lie anymore, and I was too ashamed to tell the truth. Grace Chapel became a place of judgment where I felt every eye on my hollow cheeks and joyless smile. The change happened slowly. I started visiting a different church on the other side of town, a little community church with a woman pastor and a killer coffee hour. I didn't talk to anyone for months, just sat in the back. But then a woman named Sarah invited me to her book club. I went. And for the first time in years, I talked to people who didn't know Daniel, who didn't see me as half of a broken whole. They just saw me. They made me laugh. They reminded me what friendship felt like. With their support, a little bit of my spine grew back. It started with small things. Daniel came home one night and sneered at the dinner I'd made. "Is this all there is?" he asked, poking at a piece of chicken. The old me would have apologized and offered to make something else. The new me looked him dead in the eye. "If you don't like it, feel free to make your own dinner." He was so stunned he didn't speak for the rest of the evening. It felt like a superpower. I started saying no to things I didn't want to do. I started making plans with my friends from the new church without asking his permission. He hated it. The docile, controllable wife he'd curated was disappearing, and he didn't know how to handle it. A man like Daniel can't stand a woman he can't control. One Tuesday afternoon, I came home from having coffee with Sarah to find a suitcase by the door. "I can't do this anymore," he said, not looking at me. "You're not the woman I married." "You're right," I said, a wave of profound, earth-shattering relief washing over me. "I'm not." He left. Just like that. 3 months later, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a picture posted by one of his cousins. It was Daniel on one knee, proposing to a woman with a perfectly round pregnant belly. The caption read, "Times?" She said yes. "Can't wait to welcome another member to the family?" Asterisk. I looked at the picture. I looked at the happy, smiling couple about to start their family on a foundation of lies, just like we had. But instead of the gut-wrenching pain I expected, I felt nothing. Just a quiet click as the last lock on my cage sprang open. His divorce lawyer called mine the next day to expedite the proceedings. Today I have my own small apartment, a job I love, and friends who feel more like family than my actual family ever did. I'm working on myself. I'm healing. And sometimes late at night I think about that girl standing on the cliff, her whole world crumbling. I wish I could tell her that the worst day of her life was actually the first day of her freedom. Daniel thought leaving me was his final act of punishment. He had no idea it was the greatest gift he ever could have given me. I have never ever been happier.
Story 9.
It started at a stupid backyard barbecue. One of Mark's work friends, a guy I'd met maybe twice, cornered me by the beer cooler. "Wow, Sandra," he said, his eyes a little too wide. "You look incredible. Seriously. Mark, you better put a lock on that." He laughed. I gave a tight-lipped smile, and Mark, who was right behind me, just grunted. It was a dumb, temporary account comment. The kind of thing drunk guys say. I didn't think about it for more than 5 seconds. But someone else did. Chloe. She sidled up to Mark later, a plastic cup of white wine in her hand. I was talking to someone else, but I saw it. The way she put her hand on his arm, her head tilted with that look of manufactured concern she was so good at. I couldn't hear what she said, but I saw Mark's shoulders slump. That was the first crack. A few nights later, we were in bed. Mark was staring at the ceiling. "Do you still think I'm handsome?" he asked. His voice was small. I turned over. "What? Of course I do." "Don't be ridiculous." "No, I mean really. Be honest." "Mark, I married you. I'm pretty sure that ship has sailed. You're stuck with me thinking you're handsome forever." He didn't laugh. He just kept staring at the ceiling. "Okay," he whispered. The questions started coming every few days. At first they were about him. Do you think I'm getting boring? Would you tell me if I let myself go? I'd answer them a little annoyed, but I chalked it up to him hitting his late 30s. A mini crisis. Then the questions turned to me. You seem to have a really good time talking to that new guy at your office party, he'd say while I was brushing my teeth. His name is Ben. He's gay. Mark. Oh. Right. A pause. You tell me though, right? If you ever felt a attraction to someone else? We've been together for 10 years. Of course I'd tell you if something were wrong. But nothing was wrong. Not with us. Something was wrong with times him asterisk. He grew quiet. He'd sit on the couch, scrolling endlessly on his phone, his face tight with anxiety. He stopped initiating sex. When I tried, he'd either say he was too tired, or he'd be so desperate for me to finish, so needy for the validation that it felt less like making love and more like I was defusing a bomb. He started quoting Chloe. I was talking to Chloe today, he began, and she was saying that in most long-term relationships, the initial passion is just a chemical reaction. It's not sustainable. It's naive to think it is. That sounds incredibly depressing, I said, not looking up from my laptop. It's not depressing, it's just realistic. She said people who ignore that are the ones who end up getting blindsided by an affair. I finally looked up. Why are you talking to Chloe about our relationship? He flinched. I'm not specifically. We were just talking about psychology. You know how she is. I did know. Chloe was a self-proclaimed expert on everything from polyamory to attachment theory, all gleaned from podcasts and Instagram therapists. She treated relationships like they were complex IKEA furniture that only she had the instructions for. The reassurance he needed became a constant gaping wound. He'd wait until I was half asleep. Promise me you'll never leave me. I'm not going anywhere, Mark. Promise me. I promise. He'd hold on to that like a life raft, but by the next morning, he'd be drowning again. He started leaving work early, needing to know where I was. He'd call me in the middle of the day just to hear my voice a frantic edge to his. Our home, my sanctuary, started to feel like a pressure cooker. I was exhausted. I felt like I was managing his emotions, parenting him, and I was starting to resent it. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I got home from the gym and found him sitting on the kitchen floor, his back against the cabinets, just staring into space. Mark, what's wrong? He looked up at me and his face just crumpled. It wasn't just crying. It was a complete breakdown. He was sobbing, huge, ragged gasps for air, his whole body shaking. I'd never seen him like this, not even when his father died. I dropped my gym bag and knelt in front of him. Hey, what is it? Talk to me. It took him a full minute to get the words out between sobs. You're going to leave me. I know you are. What are you talking about? Why would you even think that? Because it's what happens, he wailed, his voice cracking. Chloe said, she said a woman like you need more. More excitement. She said, it's not a matter of times, if times, but times when, asterisk. And I'm not enough. I see the way guys look at you and I'm nothing. I felt a cold dread wash over me. This was more than insecurity. This was poison. Someone had poured poison into my husband's ear for weeks, and I just stood by and watched him get sick. I held him, rocking him on the kitchen floor like a child. I told him he was everything, that I loved him, that none of it was true. I got him calmed down, got him a glass of water, and finally got him to go lie down. He fell into a deep, exhausted sleep within minutes. My hands were shaking with rage. I walked into the living room, my mind racing. This wasn't just Chloe being a pseudo-intellectual windbag. This was a targeted attack. But why? I pulled out my phone and called the one person who might have a clue. His sister Liz. Hey, is everything okay? She answered, her voice immediately concerned. No. Liz, something is seriously wrong with Mark. He just had a complete breakdown. He's convinced I'm going to cheat on him and leave him. He keeps quoting Chloe. There was a dead silence on the other end of the line. Sandra, Liz, finally said, her voice dangerously low. That bitch. What do you mean? What do you know? She called me last week, Liz said, her words clipped and angry. To get my perspective. She said she was worried about Mark, that his insecurity was going to push you away. She said she was trying to coach him through it. Coach him? Coach him how? I heard Liz take a deep breath. She told me she had a solution. A way to divorce-proof your marriage. She suggested that you guys should consider an open relationship. The world tilted. She what? She said it would take the pressure off. That if you had an outlet, you wouldn't be tempted to leave him for real. And she offered to help. Help how, I whispered, my stomach churning. She and her boyfriend Alex. They offered to be your first experiment. To create a safe space for you both to explore. Liz's voice was dripping with disgust. She actually said, and I quote, Alex has always thought Sandra was gorgeous. And Mark needs to feel desired by another woman. It's a win-win. I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the hardwood floor. It all clicked into place. The casual comments. The seeds of doubt. The stoking of his deepest fears. It wasn't about helping us. It was a long, calculated game to get what she wanted. To get her hands on my husband and to offer me up to her partner like a piece of meat. I stood there, frozen in the silence of the house, pressing in on me. Then a primal rage I didn't know I possessed surged through my veins. It was hot and sharp and utterly clarifying. I picked up my phone. Mark was still asleep. Oblivious. My fingers flew across the screen, my thumbs pressing hard into the glass. I sent a text not to Liz, but to the architect of all this misery. To Chloe. We know what you did. Get over here. Now. The doorbell rang 20 minutes later. Mark was awake by then. I'd gone into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and laid it all out for him. Every single poisonous, calculated word Liz had told me. I watched the confusion on his face curdle into disbelief, then into a deep, gut-wrenching shame. Finally, something else took its place. A cold, hard fury that mirrored my own. It straightened his spine. He followed me to the door, his jaw set. He looked like a man waking from a long, bad dream. I pulled the door open. Chloe stood there, her face a perfect mask of concern. She was holding a bottle of wine, a fucking peace offering. Sandra, I got your text. Is everything okay? Is it Mark? She asked, trying to peer around me. He's fine, I said, my voice flat. I stepped aside. He's right here. Mark was standing in the middle of the living room, his arms crossed. He didn't look like the broken man from the kitchen floor. He looked like a husband ready to defend his home. Chloe's mask flickered. A flash of surprise, maybe fear. Oh. Mark. You're up. I was so worried. She stepped inside, placing the wine on our console table as if this were a normal visit. Sandra's texts were so aggressive. I thought something terrible had happened. Something did, Mark said. His voice was gravelly. You happened. She let out a little nervous laugh. What are you talking about? I've been trying to help you. She turned to me. Sandra, he's been in a really bad place. I was just giving him an outside perspective. An outside perspective, I took a step toward her. Or an instruction manual for blowing up my marriage, I spoke to Liz Chloe. The color drained from her face. She knew. She knew exactly what Liz would have told me. The game was up. Liz is... She can be dramatic, Chloe stammered, wringing her hands. She must have twisted my words. Did she twist this? Mark asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Did she twist you, telling me for weeks that my wife was going to cheat on me, that it was inevitable, that I wasn't enough for her? I was just trying to prepare you, she insisted, her voice rising. To help you get ahead of the problem. It happens to everyone, Mark. People get bored. Passion fades. It's reality. No, I said, shaking my head. This is reality. You saw a small crack, a stupid comment at a party, and you spent weeks hammering a wedge into it. You preyed on my husband's deepest insecurities. For what? For you, she shrieked, pointing a finger at me. For your marriage, I was offering you a solution, a way to keep your family together. A solution. Mark's laugh was harsh and empty. By sleeping with me, by having your boyfriend sleep with my wife, you call that helping. That's when she finally broke. The mask of the concerned, enlightened friend shattered, and the raw, selfish ambition underneath was hideous. Fine, she spat, her eyes flashing. Yes, is that what you want to hear? I've wanted you for years, Mark. Years. You're kind, and you're stable, and you're handsome, and she doesn't appreciate any of it. She walks around like she's so much better than everyone, and you just follow along like a lost puppy. She wasn't finished. She turned her venom on me. And you, don't pretend you're some saint. Alex has been dying for a chance with you. He thinks you're a goddess. I thought maybe if you got it out of your system with him, you'd finally stop making Mark feel like he's not good enough for you. The audacity was breathtaking. She had created the entire narrative, my boredom, Mark's inadequacy, out of thin air, a fiction designed to serve her own twisted desires. You're sick, I whispered. I'm a realist, she sneered. You two were living in a fairy tale, and it was going to end one way or another. I was just trying to give you a happier ending. Mark walked right up to her, invading her space until she was forced to take a step back. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. This is the ending, Chloe, he said, his voice like ice. Get out of our house. Get out of our lives. If I ever see you or Alex again, it will be too soon. We're done. She stared at him, her mouth opening and closing, searching for another angle, another lie. She found nothing. She snatched her purse and the pathetic bottle of wine from the table and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The silence she left behind was heavy. It was filled with weeks of unspoken fear and manufactured doubt. Mark stood with his back to me, his shoulders slumped. For a second, I was afraid the broken man was back. He turned around and his eyes were full of tears, but his face was clear. I'm so sorry, Sandra, he breathed. I am so sorry I let her do that. That I believed any of it. I crossed the room and wrapped my arms around him, burying my face in his chest. It wasn't your fault. She's a predator. She found a wound and poured salt in it. He held me tight. I feel like such an idiot. Don't, I said, pulling back to look him in the eyes. You're not an idiot. You're a man who loves his wife and was terrified of losing her. She used that. She twisted it into something ugly, but the feeling itself, Mark, that's not ugly at all. We stood there for a long time, just holding each other. There were no quick fixes. The damage was done. It would take time to sweep out all the poison she dripped into the foundation of our home. But for the first time in weeks, we were on the same side looking at the same enemy. We weren't a patient and a caregiver anymore. We were a team. Later that night, after we talked for hours, raw and honest conversations that we should have had months ago, I sat on the couch with my laptop. Mark came and sat beside me, resting his head on my shoulder. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm writing a message," I said. I pulled up a group chat with our closest mutual friends. The ones who knew us as a couple. The ones who also knew Chloe. My fingers typed clear and without malice. It wasn't revenge, it was a public health announcement. Hi everyone. This is hard to write, but Mark and I feel you need to know. We are no longer friends with Chloe or Alex. We discovered that for the past several months, Chloe has been actively and deliberately trying to destroy our marriage for her and Alex's personal gratification. This was not a misunderstanding. It was a calculated, predatory, and deeply damaging campaign against our family. We are telling you this not for sympathy, but as a warning. Be careful who you trust. I read it aloud to Mark. He nodded slowly. Send it. I hit enter. The message sat there in the chat window, stark and final. It was an amputation. Painful but necessary to stop the spread of the sickness. We had cut her out. And in the space she left behind, there was finally room for us to start healing.
Story teen.
The email sat open on my laptop, the subject line, practically glowing, your dream wedding at the Cove, contract and deposit information. My heart was doing a kick drum solo against my ribs. After 5 years of being engaged, of student loans and car payments, and saving for a house that felt perpetually out of reach, this one perfect, ridiculously expensive thing was finally ours. Josh, look, I whispered, even though he was sitting right next to me on our worn-out sofa staring at the exact same screen. He wrapped an arm around my shoulder, pulling me in close. We're really doing it, Jules. We're actually doing it. The Cove at Heron Point. It wasn't just a venue, it was a memory. We discovered it years ago on one of our regular treks, down to see Josh's younger brother James and his girlfriend Sally. They lived in this idyllic little beach town, a 10-hour drive that felt like migrating to a different planet. We'd make the trip 3-4 times a year, cramming our weekends with brunch spots. Sally wanted to try and dive bars. James swore had the best wings on the coast. They never came to visit us. Not once. But we told ourselves it was fine. They had the fun life, the beach life. We were the responsible older siblings. It was our job to make the effort. On one of those trips, we'd stumbled upon the Cove. It was an old manor house perched on a cliff, with sprawling green lawns that tumbled down to meet the churning blue of the ocean. A massive ancient oak tree stood sentinel at the edge of the property, its branches framing the horizon like a perfect photograph. We weren't even seriously planning back then, but we stood there holding hands and knew this was it. This was the place. For the last 5 months, planning had consumed us. Every spare dollar was allocated on a spreadsheet, every spare moment was spent on Pinterest. And through it all, James and Sally had been our biggest cheerleaders. Or so I thought. Oh my God, Sally, you will not believe the photographer we found. I'd gushed to her on FaceTime a few weeks ago, my laptop balanced on a pillow. Her aesthetic is exactly what we were talking about, that kind of moody, candid vibe. Sally's face, framed by her perfectly beach-waved blonde hair, lit up on the screen. No way, send me her portfolio, I'm dying to see. I'm so happy for you guys. You deserve this. I had screenshotted florists, caterers, even the string quartet we were considering for the ceremony. I sent her everything. I valued her opinion, and more than that, I wanted her to feel included. She was going to be my sister-in-law after all. Josh was the same with James. They were on the phone constantly. Dude, so we're locking in October 12th, Josh had said just last week, pacing our small living room. Can you believe it? The foliage should be incredible. You're still good to be my best man, right? I could hear James's faint but enthusiastic voice through the phone. Are you kidding me? Of course, man. Hey, since you're doing it down here, let me know if you need me to check anything out for you. Do a little recon. That's awesome, man. Thanks, Josh, had said, beaming. It means a lot. See, supportive. Eager. Our family. Now, sitting on the couch, the official contract open, it all felt real. The total on the invoice made my stomach do a nervous flip, but we'd planned for it. We'd budgeted down to the last cent. We could do this. The deposit is due by 5 p.m. Tomorrow, Josh read aloud, tracing the words on the screen with his finger. 24 hours, Jules. In 24 hours, the cove is officially ours. I leaned my head on his shoulder, a wave of pure, uncut happiness washing over me. All the waiting, all the sacrificing, it was all worth it for this. For that lawn, that oak tree, that view. We should call them, I said, already, reaching for my phone. Tell them the final date is set. We FaceTimed them together. They answered on the second ring, their faces tanned and smiling the blue sky of their beach town behind them. Big news, Sally asked, her eyes wide with faint excitement. The biggest, Josh said, grinning. We got the contract. We're officially getting married at the Cove on Saturday, October 12th. The deposit is due tomorrow. Oh my God, Sally squealed, clutching James's arm. That's amazing. It's finally happening. We're going to have the best time. A wedding in our own backyard. James nodded, a wide, easy smile on his face. That's unreal, bro. Seriously, congratulations. Let the countdown begin. We talked for another 10 minutes going over little details, them asking about hotel blocks for the family and logistics for the rehearsal dinner. Sally even suggested a brunch spot for the morning after. Every word was a stitch, sewing them deeper into the fabric of our dream. Looking back, I can see the whole conversation was a lie, a masterclass in manipulation. But at that moment, I was just happy. My family was happy for me. Okay, we gotta go, I said finally. We're opening a bottle of champagne that's been in our fridge for way too long to celebrate. Do it, Sally said. You guys have earned it. Text me pictures. We hung up, and the tiny apartment was filled with the loud times, pop times of a cork. We didn't even have proper flutes, so we drank champagne out of coffee mugs laughing. It felt perfect. Later that night, curled up in bed, I sent Sally one last text. It was a picture I'd found on the venue's Instagram page, a bride and groom kissing under the big oak tree as the sun set over the ocean. I typed, "Times, can you believe this is going to be us in a year? I can't wait for you to stand up there with me." Asterisk. Her reply came back almost instantly. Asterisk. It's going to be the most beautiful wedding ever. I'm crying already, asterisk. The next morning, I woke up buzzing with an energy I hadn't felt in years. It was payment day. Josh had already made coffee and we sat at our small kitchen table, laptops open, ready to make the wire transfer that would seal the deal. This was the finish line of a marathon we'd been running for 5 years. Ready to do this, Josh asked, his finger hovering over the mouse. So ready, I breathed my own cursor position right next to the confirm transfer button on my screen. We looked at each other, sharing a silent, giddy moment of triumph. This was it. The point of no return. And then his phone rang, its cheerful ringtone slicing through the quiet anticipation. He glanced at the screen. It's my dad, he said, answering with a smile. Hey Dad, perfect timing. You're on speaker. Julia and I are about to... He stopped. The smile on his face didn't just disappear. It was erased. He went utterly still, his eyes locked on mine. The color drained from his face, leaving a pale, sickly mask. He just listened, his knuckles turning white as he gripped his phone. Josh, I whispered, my heart starting to pound for a whole new reason. Josh, what is it? What's wrong? He didn't answer. He just kept listening to the voice on the other end of the line, his expression crumbling. A deep primal sense of dread coiled in my stomach. Something was terribly, horribly wrong. Slowly, like he was moving underwater, he lowered the phone from his ear and pressed the button to end the call. He stared at the blank laptop screen in front of him, but I knew he wasn't seeing it. He looked completely and utterly broken. Josh, you're scaring me, I said, my voice trembling. Talk to me. What did your dad say? He finally turned to look at me and his eyes were hollowed out, filled with a disbelief so profound it stole my breath. James and Sally, he said, his voice a dead, empty whisper. They just booked the Cove. I stared at him confused. What? What are you talking about? For what? Josh swallowed hard, his gaze unwavering. For their wedding. He paused, and the final two words landed like a physical blow, knocking all the air from my lungs. The weekend before ours? The words hung in the air, thick and poisonous. For a second, my brain refused to process them. It was like trying to read a sentence in a language I didn't know. That's not funny, Josh, I said, my voice flat. Tell your dad to stop joking. He's not joking, Jules. Josh's voice was hollow. Dad said James called him this morning, all excited. Said he and Sally wanted to surprise everyone. They put the deposit down an hour ago. For October 5th. At the Cove. I laughed. A sharp, ugly sound that held no humor. But they're not even engaged. Apparently he proposed last night, Josh mumbled, staring at the wall. Right after we got off FaceTime with them. The pieces clicked into place with sickening speed. The feigned excitement. Sally asking for my photographer's portfolio, my florist quotes, the name of the string quartet. James offering to do recon. Every supportive word, every encouraging question wasn't for us. It was for them. They weren't my cheerleaders. They were my spies. They had taken my dream, meticulously planned and paid for with 5 years of our sweat and sacrifice, and they had Xeroxed it. They're stealing our wedding, I whispered, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. The champagne from last night turned to acid in my stomach. I don't understand, Josh stammered, running a hand through his hair. Why would they do this? Why the same place? Why the weekend right before? My shock was hardening into a cold, sharp-edged rage. Don't you see? It's not a coincidence. It's a power play. I stood up, pacing our tiny kitchen. The Cove is 10 hours away, Josh. It's a destination for our entire family. Your grandparents, my parents, our friends from college. They can't make that trip 2 weekends in a row. They can't afford 2 flights, 2 hotel stays, 2 wedding gifts. James and Sally know that. They're forcing everyone to choose. And they knew who would be chosen. The younger son. The one who lived in the fun town. The first wedding. Ours would be the sloppy seconds, the encore that half the audience had already left for. This is a slap in the face, I said, my voice rising. They wanted our wedding, but they wanted it first. They let me do all the work, all the planning, and then they swooped in and took it. Josh grabbed his phone. I'm calling him. There has to be an explanation. He put it on speaker. My eyes were glued to the screen as the phone rang. And rang. And rang. It went to James's chirpy, pre-recorded voicemail. Hey, you've reached James. Leave a message. Josh hung up, his jaw tight. Okay. Try Sally. I dialed her number, my thumb trembling. It rang twice and then went straight to voicemail. She hadn't just ignored the call, she'd actively rejected it. She sent me to voicemail, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Josh's face was a storm of confusion and fury. He opened his messaging app and typed his thumbs flying across the screen. Asterisk, James, call me right now. Dad told us about the venue. What the hell is going on, asterisk? We both stared at the phone. The bubble under his text switched from delivered to read. And then, nothing. No reply. No call. Just a gaping, intentional silence that screamed their guilt louder than any confession could. They were ghosting us. The last bit of hope I'd been clinging to, that this was all some colossal, idiotic misunderstanding, evaporated. This was malicious. This was planned. They had smiled in our faces while stabbing us in the back. The next few hours were a blur of numb disbelief. We didn't make the wire transfer. The 5 p.m. deadline came and went, our dream venue slipping through our fingers while its contract sat open on my laptop like a tombstone. Later that evening, Josh's mom called. Her voice was laced with a forced, placating cheerfulness. "Josh, honey, I spoke to James," she said. Josh had her on speaker, his face grim. "He and Sally are just so excited they got a little carried away. You know how spontaneous they are. They said they just assumed you'd be thrilled to share the experience with them like a big month-long family celebration." I snorted. A big celebration where my guests would be broke and exhausted before my wedding even started. "Mom, they booked the exact same venue a week before us, after we spent 5 months telling them every single detail." Josh said, his voice strained. "And now they won't answer our calls. That's not spontaneous. That's insane." "Now, let's not use that kind of language," she chided gently. "I'm sure they didn't realize how it would look. Sally was worried you'd be upset, which is probably why they're not answering. They're just scared of the confrontation. Why don't you just find another weekend? Maybe in the spring. The Cove is lovely in the spring, I'm sure." I saw red. She wasn't defending them. She was making excuses for them. She was asking us, the ones who had been betrayed, to be the ones to compromise, to roll over and accept it. To move times our times wedding, the one we had planned for years. Josh hung up, looking defeated. He sank onto the couch next to me and buried his face in his hands. "I don't know what to do, Jules." I stared at the picture I'd texted Sally less than 24 hours ago. The bride and groom under the ancient oak tree. It felt like a lifetime ago. The image was tainted, now poisoned by their deception. I couldn't imagine standing on that lawn under that tree knowing they had just done the exact same thing 7 days earlier with half my family missing because they'd already been there. "I know what I'm doing," I said, my voice firm and clear. The hurt was still there, a deep, brutal ache in my chest, but it was being eclipsed by a cold, hard certainty. Josh looked up at me. "I'm not going," I stated. "What, to our wedding?" "To theirs," I clarified. "I will not stand by and watch them celebrate this. I will not smile for pictures. I will not buy them a gift. I will not toast to their happiness when they so deliberately and maliciously try to destroy ours. I am done with them, Josh. Completely and utterly done." He stared at me, his eyes wide. He knew I meant it. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a declaration. The line had been drawn. His brother and his future wife were on one side, and I was on the other. The family is already fractured. His parents are trying to sweep it under the rug to pretend this is just a silly sibling squabble. But it's not. It's a betrayal so profound that I can't see a way back. They didn't just steal a venue, they stole our joy. They proved that they value their own selfish whims more than they value us, more than they value family. And now I'm left sitting here in the rubble of my wedding plans wondering if I'm the crazy one. Am I overreacting? His mother's voice echoes in my head telling me to be the bigger person, to just move our date to forgive and forget. But I can't. Forgiving this feels like saying it was okay. And it wasn't. So I'm turning to the only place I can think of for an unbiased opinion. I'm laying it all out, every painful detail. Am I justified in boycotting my future brother-in-law's wedding after what they did? Or am I the one who's about to tear this family apart?
Story 11.
For a long time, things were good. Or at least they were easy. My brother Sebastian and I were the poster children for the non-rebellious kind of deconstruction. We'd quietly shed the rigid conservative Christianity of our childhoods sometime in college, but we never made a big deal out of it. We still showed up for Sunday dinners. I'd help Mom with the dishes, and Sebastian would talk sports with Dad in the living room, the drone of a golf tournament on the TV, a familiar hum. We were a family. The faith part was just wallpaper. You see it so much, you stop seeing it at all. That comfortable peace shattered on a perfectly normal Sunday. Mom had made her pot roast, the one that smelled like home and forgiveness. Sebastian had brought a bottle of wine. Everything was exactly as it always was until it wasn't. He waited until after Dad said grace, his words about blessings and family ringing hollow in the air a few minutes later. Mom, Dad, Sebastian started his fork hovering over his mashed potatoes. There's something I need to tell you. I'm dating someone. Someone I really care about. Mom beamed. Oh, Seb, that's wonderful. Is it Sarah from the accounting department? I always liked her. Sebastian took a deep breath. No. His name is Michael. Silence. Not a gentle pause, but a thick, heavy silence that sucked all the air out of the room. Dad put his fork down with a deliberate metallic click. Mom's smile didn't so much fade as it did freeze, a brittle, unnatural thing. His name, Dad's voice, was low flat. Yes, Sebastian said, his own voice shaking but firm. I'm gay. I watched my mother's face crumble. It was like watching a statue crack. No, she whispered, shaking her head slightly as if to dislodge a bad thought. No, Sebastian. That's not, it's a temptation, a trial. We can pray on it. It's not a trial, Mom. It's who I am. The Bible is clear on the matter, Dad stated, not looking at Sebastian, but at a fixed point on the far wall. It is an abomination. My fork clattered onto my plate. Dad, don't you dare. He finally turned his eyes on me, cold and hard as granite. This is a family matter, Laura. He times as times family, I shot back, my voice rising. He just told you something huge and vulnerable, and your first move is to quote Leviticus at him. It is a choice, Sebastian, Mom pleaded, her eyes welling up. A sinful choice. You can choose a different path. God can heal you. Sebastian just looked at her, his expression broken. He had expected disapproval, maybe some lectures. He hadn't expected this erasure of his reality. He pushed his chair back. I'm not sick, Mom. And I'm not choosing this. But I am choosing to be happy. I hoped you'd be happy for me. He looked at Dad, who was staring down at his plate as if it held the secrets to the universe. I guess I was wrong. He walked out. I stood up to follow him, but my mom grabbed my wrist. Don't you go with him? She hissed, her voice a strange mix of threat and plea. Don't you condone this? I pulled my arm away. Condone what him being happy, sorry, but I'm on Team Sebastian, always. That was the first crack. The hairline fracture that over the next few months spiderwebbed its way through our entire family foundation until it was nothing but rubble. The phone call started first. Mom crying, telling me Sebastian needed to come home and repent. Dad in the background telling her to hang up if Sebastian wouldn't listen to reason. They stopped inviting him to Sunday dinners. The first week I refused to go. The second week my mom called me sobbing. Are you abandoning us too? So I went. I went and sat in the suffocating silence, the empty chair at the table, screaming louder than any argument. I tried to talk about Sebastian, about his new promotion, about how Michael was a wonderful guy, a landscape architect who made Sebastian laugh like I hadn't heard in years. They would just stare at me. We're praying for his soul, my dad would say before changing the subject to the weather. The escalation was a slow, methodical strangulation. First, they told Sebastian he wasn't welcome at the house as long as he was living in sin. Then came the holidays. A Christmas card addressed only to me. A birthday check for me, and a text to Sebastian that said, thinking of you on your birthday, and praying you see the light. The final blow, the one that pulverized any remaining hope, came in the mail. It wasn't a letter bomb, it was worse. It was a crisp, cream-colored envelope sent by certified mail from their lawyer. Sebastian called me, his voice hollow. "They did it, Laura." "Did what?" "Seb, what's wrong?" "They officially disowned me," he said, and I could hear the bitter, humorless laugh catch in his throat. "They sent a letter. An update to the will. I'm explicitly written out. My portion is to be redirected to their church. It even says," he trailed off, taking a shaky breath. "It says, for the moral failings of our son Sebastian, who has turned his back on God and family." My blood went cold. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment argument. This was calculated. This was legal. This was forever. I hung up with Sebastian, promising I'd be over in 20 minutes with a bottle of whiskey and a pizza, and immediately dialed my parents' number. My dad picked up on the second ring. "Laura, you disowned him," I said, no preamble. "You got a Times lawyer, Times, and you put it on paper." "We did what we had to do," he said, his voice devoid of any emotion. "We cannot and will not condone his lifestyle. It goes against everything we believe." "Believe? What do you believe in?" "A God that tells you to throw your own son away." "Is that what you tithe for every Sunday? For the privilege of hating your own child?" "You watch your tone," he warned. "No, I'm done watching my tone. I'm done sitting at your silent dinner table pretending this is normal. You had a choice here. You had a choice between your dogma and your son, and you chose wrong. You chose a book of rules over a living, breathing person who loves you." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear my mom crying softly in the background. For a second, a stupid, hopeful part of me thought he might break. He might say he'd made a mistake. Instead, his voice came back colder than ever. "The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Sometimes a branch must be cut off to save the tree." He hung up. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, listening to the dead air. That was it. The schism was complete. The line wasn't just drawn. It was a canyon, and they were on the other side. My loyalty was with my brother. It always would be. I put my phone in my pocket, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door, away from one half of my family and toward the other. I didn't know it then, but the war was only just beginning. 2 years later, Sebastian tried to build a bridge. He sent my parents an invitation to his wedding. Not an email, but a thick, gorgeous cardstock invitation with his and Michael's names embossed in gold foil. A tangible olive branch. The response was a text message to me, not even to him. It was from my mother. "Tell your brother we will not be attending his event. We will be praying for him." The finality of it was a relief. The hope I hadn't even realized I was clinging to finally died, and I was free. I stopped going to the occasional tense holiday meal. I stopped forcing conversations. My relationship with my parents became a flat line. Then Liam asked me to marry him. It happened on a Tuesday in our kitchen while I was trying to scrub a stubborn stain out of a pan. He just knelt, holding out a simple, perfect ring, and the whole world went quiet. I said yes, crying and laughing into his shoulder, the smell of dish soap and his cologne mixing into the scent of my future. A week later, we were sitting on the floor of our living room, surrounded by venue pamphlets and takeout boxes. "Okay," Liam said, tapping his pen on a legal pad. "The big one. The guest list." We breezed through friends, cousins, his side of the family. Then we got to my section. I wrote down Sebastian Bestman and Michael. I wrote down Aunt Carol and Uncle Steve. Then I stopped. Liam watched me, his expression gentle. He already knew. "We don't have to," he said softly. "We're not," I said, the words coming out more forcefully than I intended. "They don't get to be there. They don't get to toast to our happiness when they tried to smother my brothers. They don't get to smile for pictures and pretend they're proud of me when they threw half of their family away." I looked at him, my eyes stinging. I will not have Sebastian spend my wedding day looking over his shoulder, wondering if they're going to make a scene or whisper to some distant cousin about his lifestyle. No. This day is for us. For our family. The one we're building. Liam took my hand and squeezed it. Okay, he said. Them's the rules. It felt right. It felt clean. For about a month it was. Then I made the mistake of calling Aunt Carol to tell her the date. Oh, Laura, honey, that's wonderful. Just wonderful, she gushed. Your mother must be absolutely over the moon. She hasn't said a word, that sly fox. Yeah, well, we're just getting the word out, I mumbled, a knot forming in my stomach. Well, you just let me know what she needs help with. I am times there, times, she said. We have to make this perfect for her little girl. The call ended and I felt a sense of dread so profound it was almost paralyzing. I knew what was coming. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I didn't have saved, but I knew who it was. My mother? Aunt Carol told me about your engagement. I guess my invitation was lost in the mail. I stared at the message, my heart hammering. I didn't reply. 5 minutes later, another one. Laura, this isn't funny. Your father and I are your parents. You can't be serious. Then a call. I let it go to voicemail. Then another text. After everything we have done for you, this is how you repay us. By shaming us in front of the entire family, you are a cruel, ungrateful child. My father's turn came via voicemail. It was short. You have made your choice. You have sided with sin and disrespected your mother. Do not expect to hear from me again until you come to your senses and apologize. My hands were shaking. Apologize. For what? For them disowning my brother, for them sending a goddamn lawyer's letter. Liam came into the room and saw my face. He took the phone from my hand, read the text, and his expression hardened. He held down her contact. Block. He did the same for my father's. Block. The silence that followed was bliss. It lasted for 6 hours. Then the real storm broke. Aunt Carol was first. Laura, I just got off the phone with your mother. She is hysterical. You have broken her heart. You times have times to invite them. They're your parents. Did you call Mom when she and Dad disowned Sebastian? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. There was a sputtering on the other end. Well, that's different. That was a private family matter. This is my private family matter, I said and hung up. The text started coming from numbers I hadn't blocked. Cousins. Uncles. My second cousin Jenny, who I hadn't seen in 5 years. Hey, heard you're being a real bridezilla. Chill out, it's just one day. Your parents love you? You're being dramatic? Family is forever. You're going to regret this. Every buzz of my phone felt like a small electric shock. They were a swarm, a hive mind of familial obligation, and they were all coming for me. The narrative was set. I was the cruel daughter punishing her loving, God-fearing parents. The years of bigotry, the disownment, the letter from the lawyer, all of it was erased, painted over with the simple damning mantra, times, but they're your parents. Asterisk? I threw my phone onto the couch and buried my face in my hands. The certainty I'd felt was crumbling, being chipped away with every message. Was I being cruel? Was I using my wedding as a weapon? The guilt was a physical thing, a heavy weight pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Maybe they're right, I whispered to Liam that night, staring up at the ceiling in the dark. Maybe I'm the monster here. I'm choosing my brother over my own mother and father. He turned on his side to face me, his hand finding mine in the dark. You're not choosing your brother times over, times them. You're choosing your brother. Period. You're choosing love over bigotry. You're choosing peace over drama. They made their choice a long time ago, Laura. You're just accepting it. His words helped, but the doubt lingered. A few days later, I called Sebastian. I needed to hear his voice. Hey, you, he answered, sounding cheerful. How's the world's most popular wedding planner? About that, I said, trying to keep my voice light. We've hit a snag. I told him everything. The texts, the calls, the pressure from every corner of the family. I told him how everyone was framing it, how I was the bad guy. When I finished, there was a long silence on the line. Laura, he said, finally, his voice thick with an emotion I couldn't place. You don't have to do this. Not for me. If it's going to tear everything apart, I don't have to come. Michael and I can take a trip that weekend. We'll celebrate with you when you get back. Just make peace. Please. His words were meant to free me, but they felt like a cage. The idea of him, my best man, my brother, missing my wedding to appease the very people who had hurt him so deeply made something in me snap into focus. The doubt, the guilt, the noise from everyone else, it all vanished. Don't you dare say that, I said, my voice shaking with sudden crystalline fury. Don't you ever, ever say that. You will be standing up there next to me. You will be holding the rings. You will be making an inappropriate joke in your speech. This is not negotiable. I took a breath, my vision strangely clear. This isn't just for you anymore, Seb. This is for me. This is my one condition for my own life. The guest list is limited to people who love and accept my entire family. My Times, Whole Times family. It was a declaration of war and a peace treaty all in one. The revenge wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet. It was a line drawn, not in the sand, but in concrete. On one side was the family I was born into. On the other, the one I was choosing. And in my heart, the war was finally over. I had already won.
Story 12.
Let me tell you about my sister-in-law, Sarah. Most of the time, she's fine. We can do brunch, we can talk about whatever Netflix show everyone's binging. She's married to my brother Mark, and for his sake, I've always made the effort. But Sarah has this thing. It's a compulsion, maybe a sickness. She cannot, under any circumstances, leave my cooking alone. The first time it happened, I'd made a roast chicken. I'm talking a perfect, crispy-skinned, juicy on the inside bird. I'd brined it for hours. I'd made a compound butter with garlic, rosemary, and thyme and stuffed it under the skin. It was a masterpiece. Sarah and Mark came over for dinner. I brought the chicken to the table and everyone was raving. I turned around to grab the gravy from the stove, and when I came back, I saw it. A dusting of bright yellow powder across my beautiful golden brown chicken. What's this? I asked, pointing a carving knife at the suspicious sprinkle. Sarah beamed, already reaching for a drumstick. Oh, just a pinch of turmeric. It looked like it needed a little color. And some extra pepper. Really makes the flavor pop. I just stared. Mark was already piling his plate high, oblivious. Thanks, Sarah, he mumbled through a mouthful of potatoes. I didn't say anything. I sliced into the bird the scent of rosemary, now fighting a weird, earthy battle with turmeric. It was annoying, but I let it go. It kept happening. I'd make a simple spaghetti bolognese, a recipe passed down from my grandmother, and I'd find oregano and a mountain of garlic powder dumped on top after she'd been in the kitchen. It just smelled a little flat, sweetie, she'd say with a sympathetic pat on my arm. I made a delicate Thai green curry, carefully balancing the fish sauce, lime, and coconut milk. I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, the whole pot smelled faintly of Italian seasoning. Asterisk, Italian seasoning, asterisk. In a Thai curry. When I looked at her, she just shrugged. It needed more body. Each time I'd try to say something. Hey Sarah, I'd really prefer if you didn't add things to my food without asking. And she'd give me this wounded, wide-eyed look. I'm just trying to help, don't be so sensitive. Mark was useless. Linda, that's just how she is, he'd say, trying to placate me. She thinks she's a chef. Just take it as a compliment. A compliment. It felt like a violation. It felt like walking into my house and finding she'd repainted a wall because she didn't like the color. It was my food, my kitchen, my effort. But for Mark, I'd bite my tongue until it bled, smile tightly, and scrape the foreign spices off my portion. This pattern went on for 2 years. A sprinkle here, a dash there. A constant low-grade irritation that I learned to manage by keeping her out of the kitchen as much as possible. Then came the tomatoes. I had scored 40 pounds of gorgeous late-season San Marzanos from a local farm. It was my yearly ritual. An entire weekend dedicated to turning this bounty into a base tomato sauce for the entire year. It's a brutal, thankless, beautiful process. My Saturday was a blur of steam and sweat. I blanched every single tomato, plunging them from boiling water to ice baths until my fingers were numb. I spent hours slipping the skins off the pile of vibrant red flesh growing on my counter. I cored them, crushed them by hand, and filled 5 of my largest stock pots. My whole house smelled like sunshine in summer. I let them simmer for hours, reducing and concentrating the scent, getting deeper and richer. All day Saturday, just prepping. Sunday was for finishing. I milled out the seeds, returning the silky smooth puree to the clean pots. The plan was simple: get the base sauce perfect, then can it. That's the whole point. It's a blank canvas. When I want to make chili in February, I can grab a jar and add cumin and chili powder. When I want to make pasta sauce in April, I can add basil and garlic. You do times, not times, season the base sauce. It's the cardinal rule of canning. By Sunday afternoon, I was exhausted, my back ached, and my hands were stained red. But I was triumphant. 5 massive pots of flawless, unseasoned, perfect tomato sauce bubbled gently on my stovetop. My winter pantry was secured. That's when my phone buzzed. It was Mark. Asterisk. Hey, can we swing by in 5? Left my drill at your place last week. Asterisk. Asterisk. Sure times, I texted back. Asterisk, doors open. I'm in the kitchen, don't mind the mess. Asterisk. A few minutes later, I heard the front door open. Hey, Lynn, Mark called out. We won't be a minute. He came to the kitchen doorway while Sarah wandered toward the living room. Whoa, he said, looking at the 5 pots. You weren't kidding. That's a lot of sauce. 40 pounds of tomatoes, I said, wiping sweat from my forehead with the back of my arm. My weekend condensed into 5 pots. Smells amazing, he said. He went to the hall closet to find his drill. Sarah reappeared. Wow, Linda, you've been busy. She walked over to the stove, peering into the pots like a health inspector. She picked up a spoon, dipped it into the nearest pot, and tasted it. Her face scrunched up slightly. It's just a base sauce, Sarah, I said quickly. It's not supposed to have any seasoning yet. Right. Of course, she said, her eyes scanning my spice rack. Mark came back, drill in hand. Got it. All right, we're out of here. Talk to you later, Lynn. Bye, guys, I said, turning my back to stir one of the pots. They were at the front door. I heard their muffled goodbyes and then the click of the door shutting. The whole visit took maybe 3 minutes. I let out a huge sigh of relief. The house was quiet again. Just me and my sauce. I stirred each pot one last time, getting ready to start the canning process. As I moved from the first pot to the second, a strange aroma hit my nose. It wasn't the pure, clean scent of cooked down tomatoes. It was something else. Something familiar and unwelcome. I leaned over the second pot. I saw it immediately. A slick of olive oil shimmering on the surface. Flecks of black pepper. and something else. Green specks. I dipped the spoon in and brought it closer. Dried oregano. And thyme. My heart started hammering against my ribs. No. She wouldn't. I lunged to the third pot, the same thing. The fourth pot, the same. My hands were shaking as I moved to the fifth and final pot, the biggest one. I peered into the deep red liquid. There, swirling in the heat, was a faint, sickeningly yellow cloud. Turmeric. She had seasoned all of it. Every last drop. 40 pounds of tomatoes, 2 days of brutal labor, my entire winter supply. Ruined. She hadn't just added a pinch of salt. She had created her own flavor profile, a bizarre concoction of salt, pepper, olive oil, Italian herbs, and turmeric, and dumped it into my 5 pots of pristine blank canvas-based sauce. I stood there, frozen in my steamy kitchen, staring at the oily, herb-flecked evidence of her crime. The rage started as a low hum in my chest and grew into a roar that deafened me. It wasn't about the spices anymore. It was about the complete and utter disrespect. The arrogance. The audacity. Through the window, I saw Mark's car still parked at the curb. He was probably on his phone, Sarah in the passenger seat beside him, scrolling through hers, smugly satisfied with her helpful little fix. I dropped the spoon. It clattered against the floor, splattering red sauce across the tile like blood. Wiping my hands on my apron, I walked out of my kitchen through my living room and pulled open the front door. They were just about to pull away. My voice when it came out was nothing like my own. It was dangerously calm. Mark. He stopped the car and rolled down the window, a confused look on his face. What's up? Forget something. Both of you, inside, now. My tone must have cut through the air because he didn't argue. He just put the car in park and got out. Sarah emerged from the passenger side looking annoyed. Linda, we're kind of in a hurry. I didn't answer her. I just turned and walked back into my house, leaving the front door wide open. I went straight to the kitchen and stood there, arms crossed, waiting. They followed me in. The air was thick with the clashing scents of pure tomato and Sarah's bizarre spice cocktail. Okay, what's the big draw? Mark started. Then he stopped. He saw my face. He looked at the 5 pots simmering on the stove. I didn't say a word. I just picked up the spoon I dropped, dipped it into the nearest pot, and held it out. The slick of olive oil caught the light. The flecks of mystery herbs were suspended in the ruined red. Mark looked confused. I don't... But Sarah knew. A smug little smile played on her lips. Oh, that I just helped it along a little. It was so bland, it just needed some taste. That was it. That was the line. All the frustration, all the bitten back comments from the past 2 years erupted inside me. But it didn't come out as a scream. It came out as ice. I completely ignored her. I turned my full attention to my brother, my voice low and shaking with fury. Mark. He flinched. Take your wife and get out of my house. Sarah scoffed. Excuse me, Linda, don't be so dramatic. I was helping. I still didn't look at her. My eyes were locked on my brother's. She is never, ever to set foot in this house again. Do you understand me? She is banned. Permanently. Linda, come on, Mark pleaded, his eyes darting between me and his wife. It's just sauce. It was 2 days of my life, I snapped. It was 40 pounds of tomatoes. It was my winter. And she walked in here and pissed in it because she has no respect. Not for me, not for my work, not for my home. I pointed to the stove. And? You're going to take it with you. What? He asked, bewildered. Get containers. Get buckets. I don't care. You are taking every last drop of this ruined sauce with you tonight. And then you are going to the farmer's market and you are buying me 40 pounds of San Marzano tomatoes. You will deliver them to my doorstep. Now get her and this garbage out of my sight. Sarah finally seemed to grasp that this wasn't one of our usual little spats. You can't be serious. You're insane. It's food. Get out. I finally roared, pointing at the door. Mark, for once in his life, didn't try to placate. He saw something in my eyes he'd never seen before. He grabbed Sarah's arm. Let's go, Sarah. But, now he said, his voice firm. He dragged her out of the kitchen. I stood there listening to them rustle around my pantry, finding old Tupperware and empty yogurt containers to ladle my ruined sauce into. The scraping of the spoon against the bottom of my pots was the sound of my heart breaking. An hour later, they were gone. The sauce was gone. My kitchen was quiet, empty, and smelled of betrayal. The next afternoon, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Mark standing alone on the porch. At his feet was a massive cardboard box overflowing with beautiful red, perfect San Marzano tomatoes. He was holding a bakery box in one hand and an envelope in the other. He looked exhausted. Lynn, Did you bring the tomatoes? I asked, my voice flat. Yeah. 40 pounds. And this. He held out the bakery box and the envelope. It's a Black Forest cake. Your favorite? And a letter. Is the letter from her? No, he said quickly. It's for me. I took the box of tomatoes and slid it inside. I took the cake and the letter and set them on my entry table. Then I looked back at him. Thank you for replacing the tomatoes, Mark. I appreciate that you did the right thing. He looked relieved for a split second. So, are we okay? Can I tell Sarah that... The bandstands, I said, cutting him off. She is not welcome here. Nothing has changed. His face fell. Linda, she knows she messed up. She feels terrible. Does she? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Does she feel terrible for ruining 2 days of my labor, or does she feel terrible that she's finally facing a consequence? He had no answer for that. I love you, Mark. You are always welcome in my home. Your wife is not. That is my boundary. You can either respect it or not. The choice is yours. I closed the door before he could argue. I left the cake on the table, unopened. I had no appetite. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was my mother. I knew this call was coming. Linda, honey. I just spoke to Mark. What is this I hear about you banning Sarah from your house? That's correct, I said, starting to wash the first of the new tomatoes. I wasn't wasting any time. Well, I think that's a massive overreaction. She made a mistake. She apologized. She did not apologize, I interrupted. Mark apologized. He replaced the ingredients. She has done nothing. You're putting your brother in a terrible position. And what about Thanksgiving? You always host. What are we supposed to do now? The manipulation was so textbook, it was almost funny. Almost. Mom, you have a few options, I said, my voice dangerously calm as I plunged a batch of tomatoes into boiling water. You can host. Dad can host. Mark and Sarah can host. You can all go to a restaurant. What you will not be doing is coming here. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. I am not setting myself on fire to keep the rest of you warm anymore. I continued scooping the tomatoes into an ice bath. My home is my sanctuary. If Sarah can't respect that, she doesn't get to be in it. And if the rest of you can't respect my decision to protect my own peace, then maybe you should stay home too. Linda, you are tearing this family apart over some spices, she cried, her voice escalating. No, Mom, I said, picking up the first tomato and feeling the skin slip off perfectly between my fingers. I'm not. I'm just cleaning my house. I hung up the phone. I looked around my kitchen at the piles of fresh, unadulterated tomatoes waiting for me. For the first time in days, the air smelled clean. It smelled like my own. And it was worth it.